Chapter 478. Rumble. Bang. Bang. One after another, heavy explosions rang out in the sky above the valley. A series of illusory figures were constantly dragged through the air. Chu Hen, who was enveloped in an overbearing black light, and Ko Tianchen, who was entwined with silver light patterns, clashed against each other again and again. The two of them collided head-on, and then they swiftly split apart. After that, powerful waves of energy swept through the sky, and they collided fiercely like meteors. Every single time they collided, it caused the space around them to tremble and become uneasy. True essence sprayed while scattered balls of light wantonly bloomed and exploded. Powerful waves of air whistled through the surroundings. The battle between Chu Hen and Ko Tianchen was like a battle between stars. The geniuses and experts of the other sex retreated. They retreated out of the battlefield. This sudden and unexpected event was truly surprising. Besides the members of the Thousand Crane sect, the members of the other groups felt that this battle was especially interesting. "Why don't I see the clone hex seal?" asked one of the young geniuses from Moon Ocean City. "Right. Where's the clone hex seal?" The members of the other groups looked at each other, and then they swept their gazes across the surroundings. There weren't any hex seals or talismans in this area, and all the balls of light that had appeared earlier had vanished without a trace. "Looks like some fellow took advantage of the situation and picked up the fish from the shadows. Who was it?" In an instant, all of them couldn't help but guess at each other. Moreover, all of them seemed as if they'd picked up the fish from the shadows. However, it didn't take long for their attention to return to the intense battle between Chu Hen and Ko Tianchen. Bang! The two of them collided ferociously once more, and then an expanse of violent waves of true essence swept out like ripples on the surface of water and swept through the surroundings. The mountains shook, and even the towering peaks that stood towering outside the valley shook faintly. Rocks of all sizes were shaken to the point they rustled and fell. "Heh, you really do have some ability. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant." Ko Tianchen's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He stretched out his right hand and turned it into an eagle's claw, aiming for Chu Hen's chest. A gorgeous silver light wandered around Ko Tianchen's fingertips. His true essence violently pulsated, and an astonishing tearing force erupted. Chu Hen's face turned cold and his gaze turned fierce. He threw out a punch that was wrapped in surging black light and heavily smashed into his opponent's chest. Hiss! Bang! As the light swirled, Ko Tianchen's sharp claws left 2 bloody marks on Chu Hen's chest. At the same time, Chu Hen's heavy fists landed on Ko Tianchen's body. The people who were hovering in the air were secretly surprised. What kind of enmity did these two people have? It was one thing for him to be so ruthless in his attacks, but he was even using the method of trading injury for injury. He was really ruthless. Ko Tianchen's sharp claws only caused superficial wounds to Chu Hen. But when Chu Hen's heavy fists landed on Ko Tianchen's body, it was very uncomfortable. Under the fierce and powerful punch, Ko Tianchen only felt the blood in his body churning, and his internal organs were shaken. "Humph, it must be uncomfortable," Chu Hen sneered frivolously. His eyes turned cold again. Surging true essence surged out, and a heavy kick swept towards Ko Tianchen's head. The worst is yet to come. Whoosh! The wind whistled and waves of air stacked up. Ko Tianchen coldly snorted with some disdain. Shortly after, silver light circulated around his body. Xiao! With a xiao sound, he leapt up. Like a beam of light piercing through the moon, he easily dodged Chu Hen's attack. Immediately afterward, Ko Tianchen swept down again, setting off waves of rapid counterattacks. From evading to attacking, it only took an instant for him to do so. Ko Tianchen's speed was extremely fast, and his explosive power was extremely strong. His attacks were especially fierce. Boom! The silver light that was as bright as stars hit Chu Hen's body, and the overwhelming silver light was sent flying hundreds of meters away. The black light outside Chu Hen's body was agitated, and he was hit back more than 10 meters. Immediately after, Ko Tianqian once again turned into a shadow and attacked from the side. Along with a sharp eagle's cry, the powerful silver radiance once again attacked Chu Hen's right side. In an instant, the sky was filled with the phantoms of sharp silver falcons. It was as if Chu Hen was surrounded in the middle by a dozen or so silver eagles. He continuously received the attacks from all directions. The dazzling scene dazzled the eyes of countless people in the surroundings. The so-called sky-splitting falcon's bloodline limit really lives up to its reputation. In the Moon End City team, Yi Tai, the young man who used a heavy sword as his weapon, squinted his eyes, his face full of amazement. The other people present also had a shocked expression on their faces. It was common knowledge that Ko Tianqian possessed a very high-level Xian body bloodline limit, the sky-splitting falcon. This was a bloodline of the beast Xian body. Not only was it extremely fast, but its explosive power was also very fierce. Anyone who encountered such an enemy would be very difficult to deal with. Once Ko Tianqian's aura rose, his attacks would definitely come one after another, and the strength would also become more and more fierce. Currently, Chu Hen was in such a situation. Every time Ko Tianqian attacked, he would force Chu Hen to retreat. Moreover, the former trapped Chu Hen in a fixed area. Front, back, left, right, and from all different angles, he attacked continuously. In everyone's opinion, although Chu Hen could still resist with difficulty, once Ko Tianqian found an opening, he would definitely lose. The core disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect are indeed extraordinary. The young woman called Little One agreed in a low voice. Then, she blurted out, "I wonder what's the relationship between junior sister Mengchang and that person called Chu Hen? What relationship?" The people of the Moon End City could not help but look at Luo Mengchang on the other side. At this moment, Luo Mengchang's beautiful eyes were filled with caution as she looked at the fierce battle in the sky in front of her. There was a faint hint of worry on her beautiful and exquisite face. Although Luo Mengchang had always been very confident in Chu Hen, after all, Ko Tianqian was a well-known figure in the major sects of the Hundred Kingdoms state. It was still hard to say who would win and who would lose in this battle. "She seems to be very concerned about that Chu Hen," Little One said casually. Song Yuanjia frowned slightly, and a trace of cold light flashed in his eyes. On the side of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Mu Feng rested his sword on his shoulder. He had a carefree and relaxed look on his face. "Young master, can you pay attention to your image?" A companion of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion could not stand it any more and stepped forward to remind him. "What are you afraid of? This young master is handsome and elegant. Even if I'm only wearing flowery underpants, I'm still handsome. Image is just the icing on the cake for me." Shameless! That person's forehead was full of black lines, and he cursed in his heart. He looked up at the fierce battle in the sky and thought to himself, "If you had half of your friend's domineering aura, our Heavenly Sword Pavilion would also feel proud." Bang! A series of spiritual energy rays burst out wantonly. Screech! Ko Tianqian's power soared to the sky, and the majestic aura crushed down on Chu Hen with an earth-shattering momentum. "Hey, it seems that you can't wait for me to use the next killing move." Together with the passionate eagle cry, Ko Tianqian's face showed a touch of disdain. Boom! In an instant, Ko Tianqian's whole body erupted with a fierce aura. He slanted across the sky and swooped down, sweeping towards Chu Hen with shocking power. A majestic chi wave pattern was left in the air. The silver light that lingered around Ko Tianqian's body shone brightly. In the process of rushing towards Chu Hen, a pair of huge silver wings appeared on both sides of Ko Tianqian. At the same time, a majestic eagle-head shadow appeared in front of Ko Tianqian. The eagle soared through the sky, its momentum piercing the sky. The wind and clouds stirred, and the powerful waves of air surged towards Chu Hen. This was definitely the fiercest attack that Ko Tianqian had displayed so far. The expressions of the surrounding people all changed. Previously, Ko Tianchen had continuously attacked Chu Hen in order to disperse the opponent's spiritual energy. It made it impossible for him to condense enough energy to resist in an instant. But now, Ko Tianchen's fatal attack had arrived as expected. Screech! The biting cold wind blew on his face like a knife. In the blink of an eye, Ko Tianchen's attack had already arrived in front of him. Just as everyone present thought that Chu Hen had met with trouble, a heavy storm of thunder suddenly rose between the heavens and earth. Chi-Chi, the manic aura, caused the sky to tremble. In the next moment, a thick bolt of lightning suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's body. What was even more shocking was that these lightning bolts actually appeared to be a strange dark color. Buzz! In an instant, a huge screen of lightning suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. The crisscrossing black lightning formed a peerless electric net. Boom! In the next moment, the silver eagle that Ko Tianchen had transformed into was like a fierce beast that had crashed into the heavenly net. Sparks flew everywhere and light filled the sky. An astonishing and terrifying power randomly splashed between heaven and earth. The dark lightning and the silver light fiercely interweaved and collided. The mighty scene was like a fierce beast charging into the heavenly net. The sky changed color, and the wind and clouds rolled. The dark lightning net rapidly increased its toughness and lethality. Ko Tianchen was not to be outdone, and continuously erupted with fierce attacks. The area in the center of the lightning net was breaking open at a speed visible to the naked eye. The successive collisions of power were like the crisscrossing of thunder, rumbling and shaking, ear-piercing. Watching this scene in front of them, everyone from the major forces was extremely shocked. No one had expected that Chu Hen would have such a trick up his sleeve. It was truly surprising. On the Shurasek's side, "It's the power of dark lightning," a young man with a sinister expression said fiercely. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he clenched his fists tightly. "There's residual dark lightning power on senior brother Lang Li's corpse. This bastard killed senior brother Lang Li." What? Chapter 479. The power of dark lightning. That bastard killed senior brother Lang Li. A furious shout came from the Shurasek's team. Whoosh! In an instant, a wave of low and deep exclamations of astonishment arose from the various forces teams. Blade Ju Lang Li actually died in the hands of Chu Hen? Song Yuanjia of Moon End City, Xiao Rumen of Illusory Rain Sect, and Mu Feng of Heavenly Sword Pavilion were all surprised. Previously, everyone thought that Lang Li was killed by Ko Tianchen or Sherwen Xing. They never expected that the one who truly ended his life was Chu Hen. No wonder the Thousand Cranes sect wanted to chase after Chu Hen. A new genius who could kill a core disciple of the Shura sect was definitely someone that all the major sects would pursue. On the Illusory Rain sect's side, Xiao Ruoman's enchanting eyes were also filled with a hint of surprise. The first time she met Chu Hen was 2 months ago at the Myriad Beast Ridge. At the time, he shone brilliantly in his battle against the Palm of Death, Lu Tianxiang. At that time, Xiao Rumen felt that Chu Hen had extraordinary potential. However, she did not expect that she had still underestimated Chu Hen. Although Lang Li and Lu Tianxiang were both part of the 7 absolute prodigies, the difference in strength between the two was not just one level. It was hard to imagine that Chu Hen had hidden his strength so deeply, or that his strength had increased so rapidly. Pust. The furious dark lightning net met Ko Tianchen's powerful attack head-on. Ko Tianchen's entire body blossomed with a dazzling silver brilliance. The huge wings on both sides of his body and the huge eagle head in front of him emitted a thick and fierce aura. Under Ko Tianchen's terrifying attack, an opening was swiftly torn in the center of the dark lightning net. The intense battle was exceptionally fierce. True essence collided and intersected, producing a series of sparks. Ko Tianchen's aura was peerless. His eyes flashed coldly, and his expression was filled with murderous intent. "You want to trap me with just this little ability? Humph!" Chu Hen coldly glared and replied with a bit of disdain. That Langley also said the same thing as you before. In the end, his head was chopped off by me. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen commanded in his heart, and a crystalline and snow-white talisman marking silently condensed into form. Frost sigil, Chu Hen shouted in his mind. Boom! In an instant, an incomparably cold ice xian-qi suddenly rose, and the temperature between heaven and earth suddenly dropped to freezing point. The thick ice xian-qi almost froze and cracked the space. It was like a sea of smoke and mist that surged toward Ko Tianqian. As the ice energy entered his body, Ko Tianqian's aura weakened significantly. The surging true essence that covered his body seemed to be slightly sluggish and calm. Layers of thick ice crystals and frost began to spread and condense over his body. Ko Tianqian's gaze turned cold, and an even more furious aura surged, causing the dense silver light to flourish. Boom! The ice crystals and frost on his body shattered in an instant, and a cold wave of air spread out, bursting into crystal fragments that filled the sky. But at the same time, the power of dark lightning, which was even more restless and furious than before, erupted from Chu Hen's body again. Sizzle! The black net of dark lightning whistled through the air, spreading out all the way to the front. Low and manic thunder intersected, like the high-pitched cries of tens of thousands of birds. Then, endless black lightning enveloped the area where Ko Tianqian was, spreading out in all directions and trapping him in the center. The black lightning intersected with each other. It covered the sky and covered the sun, just like the intertwining spirit array runes. In the blink of an eye, a huge black lightning ball that was more than 100 meters wide appeared between heaven and earth. The majestic power shook the heavens, causing a wave of sound to surge in all directions. The black lightning ball spread across the sky, like a star covering the sky, emitting an extreme energy riot. And inside the lightning ball, Ko Tianqian was directly trapped. The black lightning net not only blocked the front of him, but also blocked the front, back, left, right, up, down, and down. Screech! Sizzle! The eagle's cry pierced through the air, trapping the vicious bird. This shocking scene was like a berserk beast trapped in a cage of lightning. Everyone present was shocked in their hearts, and their expressions changed. The expressions of Xiao Ruoman, Sherwen Xing, Mu Feng, Song Yuanjia and the others all changed. On the Azura sect's side, Tu Ye's eyes flashed with a cold light, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a trace of a sinister smile. Luo Mingshang's jade-like hands were clenched in front of her, her beautiful eyes suffused with a faint strange light. In the past year, Chu Hen's strength had greatly improved compared to when he was in the Sacred Star Empire. This was what Luo Mingshang hoped to see. Boom! Bang! Ko Tianqian, whose entire body was flowing with dazzling silver light, constantly attacked the lightning cage, the huge black lightning ball expanding under the opponent's attacks. On the other hand, Chu Hen coldly smiled. Within his deep eyes, there seemed to be lightning jumping about. Then, Chu Hen raised his right arm, his palm facing the huge lightning cage in front of him. His 5 fingers bent inwards, and a powerful aura instantly surged out from his palm. Retract! Retract! Suddenly, the powerful lightning cage immediately stopped expanding. Instead, it rapidly shrank and shrank. The space Ko Tianqian was in was getting smaller and smaller, and the density of the lightning ball was getting higher and higher. The violent dark lightning power quickly compressed together, emitting an extremely violent power. Wind and thunder rolled, and the world lost its color. The extremely dangerous destructive aura was sensed by everyone present. And the moment the lightning ball shrank to half of its original size, with a diameter of about 50 meters, 2 sharp sword-like rays of light shot out from Chu Hen's eyes. His throat gently moved, and he clearly and heavily spat out a word. Explode! Explode, along with the sound of falling. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the black lightning ball was like an exploding star, bursting open from the middle. It was earth-shattering, and the 9 heavens shook. A majestic black wave rushed into the sky, sweeping in all directions. Rumble, the peaks and ridges around the valley were flattened one by one and blasted into ruins. The grass and trees were all crushed into fine powder. The people in the surroundings were all forced back by this overbearing and terrifying might. The black lightning patterns that filled the sky directly drowned Ko Tianchen. Senior brother Tianchen. The people from the 1,000 Cranes sect all clenched their fists, their hearts pounding with fear. Even Sherwin Xing couldn't help but frown, his eyes filled with disbelief. Chu Hen, who was only at the 3rd rank of the void-piercing realm, was actually able to erupt with such a shocking and terrifying killing move. Just the energy surge that the other party detonated just now was enough to seriously injure or even kill Wu Xiao, who was at the 4th rank of the void-piercing realm. "Oh, looks like the newcomer one, hee." The Azura Sect's Tu Yi had a mocking smile on his face. From beginning to end, Tu Yi had maintained a fairly calm state of mind. Whether it was Ko Tianchen and Sherwin Xing appearing here, or when he learned that the person who killed Langley was Chu Hen, Tu Yi's emotions didn't fluctuate much. This was also what made him terrifying. No matter when, no one could see through the other party's bottom line. Mu Feng lightly raised his eyebrows. He shook his head and curled his lips. "TSK. As expected, you're still as dazzlingly handsome as before. Seeing that you're still as awesome as ever, this handsome Feng is relieved." Where did this guy come from? In the Moon End Cities team, Yi Tai let out a long sigh of relief and shook his head vigorously. Wait, his name is Chu Hen? Isn't he the Chu Hen who caused a sensation in the Sacred Star Dynasty more than a year ago? There's no mistaking it. Junior sister Meng Shang stayed in the Sacred Star Dynasty's Imperial Martial Academy for 2 years. That's how they knew each other. I see. I didn't expect someone from the Sacred Star Dynasty to reach this level. It's really unexpected. At that moment, the gazes that everyone looked at Chu Hen with had already changed quite a bit. He stood proudly in the void, with dark lightning gathering around him. He looked extraordinary and domineering. Boom! At this moment, another shocking turbulence burst out from the dark lightning energy in front of him. The surging black lightning seemed to have encountered the impact of a deep-sea torrent, stirring up a fierce wind that spread between heaven and earth. Everyone's face changed. Then, everyone's pupils shrank slightly. They saw that in the chaotic energy, countless sharp silver light beams penetrated. Like thousands of rays of holy light breaking through the clouds, they pierced through the sky and sprinkled on the horizon. In the next moment, a dazzling light like the sun shrouded the world. The dark lightning energy faded rapidly, and a huge ferocious beast appeared in the sky. Screech! The sharp cry seemed to have a kind of power that poured into people's souls. The vast and terrifying majesty suppressed everyone present. In the air in front of Chu Hen, an awe-inspiring eagle suddenly appeared. The eagle's wings were spread open, and its width was over 100 meters. Bright silver light patterns flowed all over its body, and every inch of it was like a sparkling and translucent gemstone. A pair of sharp eagle eyes revealed the might of a king in front of the falcon. Ko Tianchen's clothes appeared to be in a sorry state. His handsome face was dark and ashen, and his eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. Bright runes were being spat out from his body, causing the aura he emitted to soar by several times. His eyes stared at Chu Hen in front of him, and he shouted, "You can be proud to have made me use this move." Chapter 480. You should be proud that you're able to make me use this move. Between the ice-cold words, there was a strong sense of confidence and undisguised killing intent. Ko Tianchen's body flickered with bright silver light while the 300 m wide eagle behind him was peerlessly domineering and awe-inspiring. It was like the king of demon beasts that stood proudly in the heavens and the earth. The powerful and dignified aura caused everyone's heart to palpitate. A boundless pressure surged towards Chu Hen. The strong wind caused waves of air to surge. Many people were suppressed by Ko Tianqian's monstrous aura to the point they were unable to move. This Ko Tianqian has taken out his trump card. He's really strong. I'm afraid Chu Hen has kicked an iron plate. It's hard to say. Perhaps Chu Hen hasn't used his trump card yet. The geniuses of the teams from Moon Forbidden City, Illusory Rain Sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion revealed solemn expressions. A battle of this level was rare. The combat strength that Chu Hen had displayed caused quite a few people to have some expectations in their hearts. They wondered if Chu Hen had the ability to block Ko Tianqian's next move. The expressions of the members of the Thousand Crane sect were rather complicated. They did not wish to see Chu Hen die at Ko Tianqian's hands. A young female disciple from the Thousand Crane sect stepped forward and said, "Senior Brother Shi, we can't allow Senior Brother Ko to continue causing trouble. Quickly stop them." Shi Wenxing frowned. He glanced at the members of the Azura sect and said, "Ignore them. Just watch out for the members of the Azura sect." But there's no need to say anything else. All of you know Tianqian's temper. Once he gets angry, he won't even listen to the Grand Elder. Shi Wenxing spoke in a low voice with slight helplessness. OM. His surging aura covered the heavens and the earth and shook the surroundings. Chu Hen looked at Ko Tianqian, whose aura was rising without end, and he fearlessly confronted Ko Tianqian. The dark lightning that lingered around his body pulsated vigorously, emitting a chi-chi, restless sound, like black vines intertwining with each other. The powerful and restless power of dark lightning spread out in all directions, enveloping Chu Hen's body and forming a tight three-dimensional electric net. Humph! A cold smile appeared on Ko Tianqian's face, and his high-pitched voice carried a hint of arrogance. "Hee, the show has begun." Boom! A monstrous aura roared through the air. The sky-splitting falcon behind Ko Tianqian flapped its wings and let out a sharp cry. It soared into the sky and rushed to an even higher altitude. The vicious bird shook the heavens, overlooking the mountains and rivers. In the next moment, an extremely majestic might erupted from Ko Tianqian's body. Screech! The sky-splitting falcon's body suddenly blossomed with an endless brilliance, and then a terrifying aura of destruction swept through the sky. Countless sharp silver rays of light, like the holy light that broke through the thick clouds in the sky, attacked Chu Hen in front of it. The sky turned pale, and the dazzling light enveloped the entire valley in a silver light. Everyone's expression changed greatly. Anyone could clearly feel the strong destructive power that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Sky-splitting, flowing falcon eagle light. Ko Tianqian shouted angrily. His momentum was shocking and his aura surged. His entire body exuded an extraordinary domineering aura. Boom! In an instant, the light that was like a sacred star swept up an extremely terrifying penetrative and destructive power. It was like the Milky Way falling from the sky, slanting down and bombarding Chu Hen's body. The heavens and earth shook, and the aura pierced through the stars. A violent torrent of power converged and instantly covered the black lightning net around Chu Hen's body. Then, it crushed all the way down and smashed the power of the dark lightning into pieces. Chu Hen's pupils slightly shrank, reflecting the powerful and resplendent light patterns. In the next second, the majestic silver light beam directly submerged Chu Hen within it. The flowing falcon eagle light, the power to split the sky. After the terrifying eagle light engulfed Chu Hen, it continued to charge down. Boom! It set off an earth-shaking explosion, and unexpectedly penetrated a mountain in the area behind him. Rays of extremely penetrative silver light poured out, and in an instant, the mountain was immediately riddled with holes. More than half of the mountain wall was filled with round holes that looked like a beehive. Looking at the mountain that was instantly pierced through by the powerful flowing falcon eagle light, everyone's expression changed again and again, and their hearts were shocked again and again. It was really difficult for them to imagine that under such a powerful force, Chu Hen could still survive. This was no less than 1,000 arrows piercing through the heart. No matter how strong Chen Shi was, he absolutely couldn't withstand such a powerful attack from Ko Tianchen. Is he dead? Yi Tai of Moon City muttered in a low voice. He should be. He's almost dead. The limit of the sky-rending falcon's bloodline is really terrifying. Fist Absolute Song Yuanjia, Illusion Absolute Xiao Ruoman, Tu Yi, Mu Feng, and the other members of the Thousand Crane sect from Sherwin's Star watched the scene before them with solemn expressions. The sky-rending falcon looked down at the sky, and its aura seemed to be able to swallow the world. Luo Mingshang pursed her red lips slightly, and her beautiful eyes stared fixedly at the gorgeous river of eagle light that pierced through the sky and the earth. Her face that could bring calamity to a country revealed a trace of anticipation. But beneath that anticipation, there was unconcealable concern and nervousness. Everything in the area enveloped by the flowing falcon eagle light was reduced to nothingness. Wherever it went, any vitality was completely obliterated. The sky-rending falcon that covered the sky was like the king that controlled the area, and Ko Tianchen was peerlessly domineering and extraordinary. Ha 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 ha! Ko Tianchen laughed complacently, and he spread his arms to announce his victory. Seeing this, the expressions of the various team's members changed, and many revealed hints of fear in their eyes. In the end, the veteran geniuses had the last laugh. However, at this moment, a shockingly ferocious and furious aura suddenly spread out from the Eagle Light River. What? Everyone's heart suddenly trembled. Rumble! Heavenly lightning raged, and space shook. Before everyone could recover from their shock, the dark and oppressive energy of dark lightning charged through the silver river of light that covered the sky. The violent energy produced a deafening sound of collision that sounded like mountains colliding. Roar! In the next instant, the high-pitched roar of a ferocious beast gave rise to a surging might that shook the heavens. Subsequently, dark lightning surged into the sky and blasted the surrounding eagle light away. The first thing that entered everyone's eyes was the image of an enormous flood dragon. This flood dragon's entire body was surrounded by dense dark lightning energy. On its back was a pair of strange bat wings. Its face was ferocious, and it bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its roar soared into the sky and competed with the sky-rending falcon for its light. This is Darkwing Flood Dragon. It's definitely the Darkwing Flood Dragon. How can this be? A biting cold wind howled in all directions, and dark clouds surged in the sky. The vast and mighty aura was like a stampede of 10,000 beasts. The enormous Darkwing Flood Dragon hovered in the sky, protecting Chu Hen in the center. The powerful impact of the flowing falcon eagle light caused many new injuries to appear on Chu Hen's body. His clothes were once again dyed red by the flowing blood. However, Chu Hen's aura did not weaken in the slightest, and his deep eyes flashed with coldness. What a pity, just a little bit more. His cold tone was like a bone-piercing icicle, sending shivers down one's spine. Ko Tianchen's brows furrowed tightly, his scarlet eyes filled with murderous intent. Don't celebrate too early. If you think my sky-rending falcon is only capable of this much, then you're gravely mistaken. Sorry, you won't have the chance. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth rose into a sinister sneer. Roar! As soon as he finished speaking, the Darkwing Flood Dragon coiled around him, swayed its enormous body, and charged at the sky-splitting falcon with a terrifying and violent aura that seemed almost solid. Its ferocious might pierced through the sky, and dark lightning covered the earth. The Darkwing Flood Dragon was extremely fast as lightning. Wherever it went, it left a trail of dark lightning in its wake. Black lightning interweaved, and the surging pressure was like the cries of thousands of birds and beasts. Boom! An unprecedented violent explosion erupted above everyone's heads. The Darkwing Flood Dragon, covered in lightning, was like a ferocious beast that had broken through the cage of the heavens. With the power to smash the heavens, it solidly slammed into the sky, rending Falcon's body. In an instant, the sky above the entire Mang mountain forest seemed to shake. Chapter 481. Boom! Ferocious might pierced through the sky, dark lightning enveloping the world. Under countless shocked gazes, the dark-winged flood dragon was like a trapped beast that had crashed through the sky and crashed into the enormous body of the sky-shattering falcon. Boundless might soared into the sky. The remaining power surged into the sky like a tsunami, and a violent and chaotic energy storm instantly filled the world. In an instant, it was as if the sky above the entire Mount Mang forest was violently shaking. The appearance of this scene was something that no one had expected. No one had thought that the dark lightning Chu Hen possessed actually originated from the dark-winged flood dragon. Everyone could be said to be unable to see through Chu Hen more and more. Just what kind of secrets did this young man hide that no one knew of? The clash between the dark-winged flood dragon and the sky-shattering falcon was like a collision between two meteorites, one black and one silver, in the sky. Rumble! A sky-shattering explosion resounded as the two gigantic ferocious beast phantoms burst apart. The terrifying and violent energy set off layers upon layers of stormy waves. Waves of light that fused with silver and black whistled through the sky, assaulting the region like a storm. The space within a dozen miles trembled, and the towering mountains that towered into the sky outside the valley shook violently. Rocks collapsed, and deep and narrow cracks spread out on the stone walls. Sand and pebbles flew and danced in the air in the valley. The young geniuses of the various sects felt their blood boil under the pressure of the boundless might, and they hurriedly circulated the true yuan in their bodies to defend themselves. Is this guy trying to defy the heavens? He's actually able to fight Ko Tianchen to such an extent? A voice of surprise came from the Illusory Rain Sect's team. Xiao Rumen's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and her gorgeous face carried a hint of shock. The Thousand Crane Sect, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and Moon Void City were also extremely shocked. Amongst those seated, only Tu Yi from the Azura sect did not have much of a change in his emotions. However, if one were to carefully observe him, one would discover that Tu Ye's eyes were gradually revealing a sinister and vicious glint like that of a fierce wolf. Rumble! The world spun, 3,000 volts of lightning. The stone platform and the rune steel that had been flattened into ruins were also swept clean. Luo Mengchang had originally planned to go to the underground palace under the stone platform to look for Chu Hen, but now she was at the edge of the ruins. Rocks of all sizes danced around Luo Mengchang, rolling about wantonly. At this moment, a stone the size of a bowl suddenly flew past her. Luo Mengchang's beautiful eyes slightly rippled. She clearly saw a strange rune flashing on the surface of the stone. What's that? Luo Mengchang stretched out her jade-like hand and caught the stone. When she looked carefully, a peculiar rune pattern was reflected in her beautiful eyes. The runes looked like two swimming fishes playing with each other. They flickered with a sparkling luster and emitted obscure energy fluctuations. It's actually the doppelganger sigil? Luo Mengchang was slightly surprised. She thought that someone had secretly stolen the clone curse seal of the Four Directions curse seal. She did not expect that it had been hidden in the mound all along. What was even more unexpected was that this curse seal rune had floated past her. Luo Mengchang was both happy and amused at the same time. Others had fought to the death, but had not been able to snatch the Four Directions curse seal, but she had been able to pick up the clone curse seal just by standing here. It was really unexpected. Luo Mengchang did not dwell on this issue for too long. She casually put the stone engraved with the clone curse seal into her storage bracelet and looked at the sky in front of her. Her attention returned to the young figure. The surging waves of power were like a storm falling from the sky. Looking at the sky-splitting eagle that had been smashed into pieces by the dark-winged flood dragon, Ko Tianchen's face was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were almost spitting fire. "Bastard, I want your life. Heh, I already said that you have no chance. His mocking and cold smile caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble. In the next moment, a bright silver beam of light traversed through the sky. Along with a sudden wind-breaking momentum, Chu Hen slashed through the wind and waves, directly breaking through the chaotic energy region in the middle, setting off an astonishing pressure as he charged towards Ko Tianchen. Just in time. Ko Tianchen's gaze turned cold, and the silver light around him overlapped as he slapped his palm towards Qin Shi furiously. However, at the instant that Ko Tianchen had just attacked, Chu Hen suddenly sped up and flashed towards Ko Tianchen like a ghost, and then his right fist that was covered in surging black light smashed against Ko Tianchen's chest. Bang! A muffled explosion resounded in the sky, and then a gorgeous ring of light erupted like ripples on the surface of water. Ko Tianchen's figure trembled violently as if he'd been struck by a boulder. His blood surged up, and his face instantly flushed red while a strand of saltiness surged out from his throat. Tianchen! Senior Brother Ko! The expressions of everyone from the 1,000 Crane sect changed drastically, and they revealed dense astonishment. Ko Tianchen forcefully endured the blood in his mouth from spitting out, and then he blasted Chu Hen's arm away with his palm, and then he formed a claw with his other hand as he attacked Chu Hen's throat. Die! Rage, shock, rage, and dense hatred filled his heart. All sorts of monstrous rage caused Ko Tianchen's expression to seem especially savage and terrifying. Chu Hen laughed coldly as he swung his fist once more, and it collided head-on with Ko Tianchen's claw. Bang! His scattered true energy erupted wantonly. Crack! A wave of clear and resounding sounds of bones breaking caused everyone in the surroundings to feel a chill run down their spines. Ko Tianchen's arm was swiftly blasted back while the silver markings that covered it exploded into pieces. Moreover, the bones in his entire arm had been instantly broken. A miserable and shrill cry resounded from Ko Tianchen's mouth. The excruciating pain caused his handsome face to contort. Chu Hen, stay your hand. Sherwen Xing was especially furious. He didn't say another word before he immediately flew up and charged towards the two of them. He and Ko Tianchen were like brothers. Although he didn't like Ko Tianchen's stubbornness and arrogance, the two of them had been brothers for several years after all. In Sherwen Xing's eyes, he could accept Ko Tianchen killing Chu Hen, but he absolutely couldn't watch Ko Tianchen die at Chu Hen's hands. Boom! Sherwen Xing's aura rose in anger, and a majestic aura surged forward. However, Chu Hen did not care about Sherwen Xing's angry rebuke at all. An evil smile rose from the corner of his mouth. He raised his leg and gave a heavy kick, which landed heavily on Ko Tianchen's chest. Trash, you asked for it. Bang! The explosive power of a physical body that was comparable to a spirit artifact was tremendous. As Chu Hen's foot landed, Ko Tianchen's chest caved in a little. His internal organs shifted, and his sternum shattered. A large mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth like a fountain. The ferocious impact directly blasted Ko Tianchen out of the sky. Boom! With a loud sound, Ko Tianchen smashed into a mountain wall like a cannonball. Immediately, dust flew everywhere, rocks flew everywhere, and blood spurted out from all over his body. It was unknown how many of his bones and blood vessels had been destroyed. Seeing Ko Tianchen being beaten like a dead dog by Chu Hen, everyone present could not help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. Ruthless! How ruthless! This was completely beating Ko Tianchen to death. At the same time, the powerful attack of the Sherwen star that surged like a torrent arrived in front of Chu Hen. The surging palm energy caused the space to tremble endlessly, toppling mountains and overturning seas, shaking mountains and rivers. Luo Mingchang's pretty face changed, and she couldn't help but shout, "Chu Hen, watch out!" The hearts of everyone from the other powers couldn't help but rise to their throats. Two core disciples of the 1,000 Crane sect were attacking Chu Hen from the front. Such a scene was truly surprising. However, Chu Hen was already prepared for Sherwen Xing's powerful attack. He suddenly stretched out his left hand and raised his palm to meet Sherwen Xing's right palm. Bang! Their palms collided, and true origin energy sprayed out while waves of energy swept out. Due to it being a hurried attack, the true origin energy outside Chu Hen's body was swiftly crushed by Sherwen Xing's aura. Just when everyone thought that Sherwen Xing's palm would be able to break Chu Hen's entire arm, an extreme fluctuation of energy suddenly erupted from the center of their palms. Dazzling and resplendent energy of stars spread out in all directions, and it was dazzling as if they'd grasped divine radiance. What? Sherwen Xing's expression changed violently. He didn't even have the time to recover from his shock when a violent fluctuation that was comparable to a volcanic eruption suddenly erupted from the center of their palms. The terrifying explosive force that came from the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl surged like a tide, and it carried an unstoppable force that surged into Sherwen Xing's body. Bang! Under numerous gazes of disbelief, Sherwen Xing was blasted flying. He retreated a few hundred meters in succession before he was able to stabilize himself, and then a mouthful of blood sprayed from his mouth. What? Everyone's eyes were wide open as they witnessed the scenes that happened one after another. No matter if it was the geniuses from the Thousand Crane sect, Illusory Rain sect, or Moon's End City, all of them were extremely astounded. If they hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes, no one would believe it at all. However, right at this moment, the Azura sect's Tu Yi, who'd been watching silently from the sidelines, suddenly emanated a dense and bloody aura. The hearts of the members of the Thousand Crane sect shook. Damn it! Misfortune really never comes alone. The members of the Azura sect have finally decided to attack. Under such circumstances, no one would be able to stop them at all. However, to everyone's surprise, Tu Ye's first target was not the members of the Thousand Crane sect from Sherwen Star. Hee. Tu Ye's eyes were ghastly as he glanced at Chu Hen, who stood proudly in midair. Looks like he's a traitor of the Thousand Crane sect. I'll help your Thousand Crane sect clean up your sect today. Kill him! Tu Yi shouted fiercely. Yes. The geniuses of the Azura sect stood up in groups and charged at Chu Hen with dense killing intent. Chu Hen's performance had aroused Tu Ye's killing intent. An opponent with such terrifying potential would definitely be a great threat to them if they were allowed to live. An evil smile appeared on the corners of Chu Hen's mouth as he looked at the ferocious beasts from the Azura sect. He raised his hand slightly and placed it lightly between his brows. Then, he lifted his eyes and a terrifying aura exploded from his eyes. Space trembled violently. Chu Hen's pitch-black pupils instantly emanated a demonic violet glow. In the depths of his pupils, there were 4 black dots of light that emitted a restless and uneasy aura. It felt as if there was a pair of demon god's eyes on Chu Hen's face. 4-star demon eyes, a dense aura of destruction swept out in an unstoppable manner. Chapter 482. Kill him. An icy cold voice that was filled with dense killing intent resounded from Tu Ye's mouth. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked, and even the geniuses from the Thousand Crane sect were stunned. They'd thought that the members of the Azura sect would seize this opportunity to attack them and annihilate the Thousand Crane sect in one go. But none of them had expected that Tu Yi would actually target Chu Hen first. However, Tu Ye's killing intent had been aroused after he witnessed Chu Hen's shocking display. If he didn't eliminate such a young genius with terrifying potential today, then he would definitely become a huge threat in the future. Coupled with the fact that Langley had perished at Chu Hen's hands, Tu Yi was even more determined to kill Chu Hen. As for the Thousand Crane sect, Tu Yi wasn't anxious at all. Ko Tianchen was heavily injured and barely alive right now, and he'd been beaten like a dead dog. Sherwen Xing was injured as well, so it was utterly impossible for him to stop Tu Yi. As far as Tu Yi was concerned, the members of the Thousand Crane sect had been reduced to fish on a chopping block. Killing them early or late depended entirely on his mood. I really have to thank you for heavily injuring the two of them. A ghastly and savage smile appeared on Tu Ye's face. On the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's side, Mu Feng's eyelids twitched as he scolded in anger. What a shameless dog! Go, protect Chu Hen. Yes, young master. All the geniuses of the Skysword Pavilion flew over with the intention of lending a hand. On the other side, Luo Mengchang immediately soared into the sky and flashed towards Chu Hen. Little one couldn't help but ask Song Yuanzhe when she saw that Luo Mengchang had taken action, Big brother Tsang, should we lend a hand? However, Song Yuanzhe had no intention of lending a hand. His gaze was slightly cold as he spoke in a low voice. It's none of our business. A chaotic battle was about to erupt once more. Waves of chaotic energy swept through the heavens and the earth. After all, the members of the Azura sect had attacked first. They were extremely swift, and they arrived almost 100 meters away from Chu Hen in an instant. Surging killing intent erupted from their bodies, and a thick stench of blood permeated the air. The aura that erupted from everyone was like a ferocious wolf. It was as if they wanted to tear Chu Hen into pieces. However, when faced with the menacing Azura sect members, Chu Hen's face did not show the slightest trace of fear. Instead, he revealed a bewitching smile. Chu Hen slowly raised his right hand and gently placed his finger between his eyebrows. A strand of obscure and restless true yuan quietly leaked out. Immediately after, Chu Hen's eyelids suddenly twitched. The space faintly trembled, and a circle of invisible air waves spread out. Chu Hen's deep, pitch-black pupils instantly turned into a strange purple color. The incomparably powerful purple light was dazzling. In an instant, Chu Hen's temperament became unusually evil. What happened? Everyone present was shocked. As they looked at Chu Hen, who was surrounded by purple light, they felt as if a pair of demon god's eyes were embedded in his determined face. A boundless might erupted from Chu Hen's body. His eyes turned cold as he shouted in his heart. 4-star demon eyes, solitary demon flame. Buzz, immediately, the 4 black dots in the depths of Chu Hen's pupils emitted extremely restless energy waves. A thick aura of destruction quietly spread out. The members of the Azura sect in front were preparing to launch a powerful attack on Chu Hen. However, at this moment, the space in front of them suddenly became distorted. At the same time, the air between heaven and earth instantly became extremely cold. Boom! In the next instant, a surging purple flame appeared out of nowhere like an erupting volcano. It was eerily cold, icy cold, and furious. An endless aura of danger covered the sky and swept out in all directions. Before the members of the Azura sect could react, the purple demon flame that appeared out of nowhere swiftly wrapped around one of the Azura sect's experts. That person's expression changed drastically. His eyes widened and looked as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. The demon flame spread extremely quickly and covered his entire body in an instant. Accompanied by an extremely shrill scream, the other party's body was burned into a pile of ashes in the blink of an eye under everyone's shocked gazes. Boom! Oh my God! Everyone turned pale with fright. Their faces were filled with extreme shock. Buzz! Monstrous purple flames soared into the sky like a violent purple tsunami. They covered the sky and the sun and engulfed the rest of the Azura sect's geniuses, including Tu Yi, with an earth-shattering momentum. The sky darkened and the earth lost its color. Endless screams of agony rang out. In the blink of an eye, apart from Tu Yi, the other Azura sect's geniuses were all turned into a pile of ashes. Boom! The scene in front of them was like a bolt from the blue that exploded in everyone's mind. Xiao Rumen, Song Yuanzhe, Sherwen Xing, and the others were so shocked that their faces turned as white as paper. F***ck. Mu Feng, who was leading the group from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to help, was also shocked to the point of being rooted to the ground. All of them were at a complete loss. What kind of technique was it to instantly kill more than 10 Azura sect experts? It was 2F** King Heaven defying. The power of a 4-star demon I was actually this terrifying. Ah! Only Tu Yi was left in the Azura sect's group. At this moment, Tu Ye's entire body was completely surrounded by a thin veil of purple flames. He was like a wild beast that had gone mad as he struggled in the sky. However, no matter how he struggled, the purple flames were like a corrosive poison. He couldn't break free and couldn't shake them off. Wherever he ran, the flames would burn wherever he went. It was as if he wouldn't stop until his opponent was burned to ashes. Everyone could not help but feel a chill run down their spines as they looked at Tu Yi, who seemed to have gone mad. From afar, Tu Ye's skin was turning charred at a speed visible to the naked eye. A thick aura of death enveloped him. Right at this moment, Tu Yi suddenly let out a loud roar. Following that, an extremely dense blood-red light erupted from his body. Boom! In the next instant, a strange shield suddenly appeared in his opponent's hand. The shape of the shield was pointed at the top and the bottom. It could be used as a protective shield, but it could also be used as a hidden weapon that far exceeded its offensive capabilities. The surface of the shield was covered with bright blood-red light patterns. In the center of the shield, there was a strange pattern that looked like an irregular blood character. "It's the blood-sealing shield, a treasure ranked 6th on the spiritual weapon ranking," a surprised voice sounded from the crowd below. "Blood-sealing shield. Isn't that the treasure of Blood Prince Shuehi? They're all from the Azura sect. Blood Prince must have lent it to him." The crowd could not help but understand why Tu Yi was not afraid when he saw Ko Tianchen and the Sherwan star coming. As it turned out, he had a treasure called the Blood-Sealing Shield. Even if he could not defeat the combined forces of Ko Tianchen and the Sherwan star, it would not be a problem for him to escape unscathed with the help of the Blood-Sealing Shield. However, he did not expect the situation to change again and again. It was so unexpected. A steady stream of true origin energy was injected into the Blood-Sealing Shield. The surface of the shield shone with a dazzling brilliance. Tu Ye's face was ferocious as he shouted angrily, "Scram!" Boom! In the next instant, a thick blood-red light erupted from the surface of the shield. A powerful force surged out and pushed back the purple flames around Tu Ye's body. Tu Ye's entire body was trembling. There were many burns on his body. He glared fiercely at Chu Hen. His body moved and turned into a ray of light as he turned around and left. "Stinking brat, I, Tu Yi, will remember this debt today." Chapter 483. Silence. The entire valley fell into an unprecedented silence. The only sound that could be heard was the sound of the cold wind whistling. Everyone's eyes were still fixed on the spot where Tu Yi had disappeared. At this moment, everyone felt as though they were in a dream. Was everything that had happened earlier real? Or perhaps, everything that had happened since the beginning was real? Everyone was puzzled. Ko Tianchen, Sherwan Star, and Chu Hen had defeated Ko Tianchen in a row. Following that, more than a dozen Sanctuary Division elites from the Azura sect were instantly killed on the spot. If Tu Yi had not managed to save his life with the help of the Blood-Sealing Shield, the entire Azura sect team would have been completely annihilated today. At this moment, everyone's heart was in a great uproar, and they were extremely restless. Everyone could not help but look at the young figure in the sky. He was thin but handsome, slender, and determined. Although he was covered in blood and his clothes were in a mess, he still exuded a domineering aura. Everyone's attention naturally gathered on the pair of bewitching purple pupils on Chu Hen's face. Just what technique did he use just now? How could it be so terrifying? Was it the power of a bloodline? Or was it some kind of martial technique? Or was it some kind of powerful secret technique that no one knew about? What was undeniable was that almost everyone present felt a deep fear and dread towards Chu Hen. This was especially true for the people from the Thousand Crane sect. His heart was filled with all sorts of complicated thoughts. Initially, they thought killing Langley was Chu Hen's limit. He hadn't expected that it was far from Chu Hen's true strength. If Ko Tianchen hadn't infuriated Chu Hen over and over again, then Ko Tianchen would have been able to allow Chu Hen to return to the Thousand Crane sect. But now, he didn't have that chance because the Thousand Crane sect had lost such an extraordinary genius. A bitter smile of self-ridicule could be seen on Shi Wenxing's face. If they had known this would happen, they would have asked Yan Hanlu and Xingde, the two core disciples, to come. They had completely screwed up their mission. Chu Hen looked coldly in the direction that Tu Yi had disappeared. He had no intention of chasing after him. The purple light surrounding his body quickly retracted, and at the same time, the demonic purple pupils also returned to their normal color. The continuous fierce battles consumed a lot of Chu Hen's internal energy. Especially that last move, it had almost exhausted all of Chu Hen's true essence. In addition, this was the first time he had used the power of his 4-star demonic pupils, so he wasn't particularly adept at controlling the silent burning purple flame. At this moment, Chu Hen was actually very tired. However, Chu Hen was still very satisfied with the power of the demon eye sacred body. It even somewhat exceeded his expectations. After that, Chu Hen's gaze turned cold, and he glanced at the Thousand Crane Sex group. Everyone was startled. Just now, the Sherwin star had attacked Chu Hen without holding back. If the other party wanted revenge, it would be troublesome. Seeing that you and my mentor are from the same sect, I won't kill the two of you today. Scram immediately. Scram. It was heavy and forceful like a thunderclap. The Sherwin star's expression changed repeatedly, and it was rather unsightly. However, the strength that Chu Hen had revealed just now had utterly shocked everyone. So, even if the Sherwin star had a ferocious tiger in his heart, he didn't dare to rashly offend Chu Hen. He immediately gritted his teeth and gestured for a few disciples of the Thousand Crane sect to take Ko Tianchen, who was heavily injured to the point he couldn't even stand up and leave. Chu Hen looked down at the group from the Thousand Crane sect. If it was at any other time, he would at least spare Ko Tianchen's life. However, Shilan was from the Thousand Crane sect after all, and the death of a core disciple wasn't a trivial matter. For the sake of not embarrassing Shilan in the sect, Chu Hen vented all his rage on the members of the Azura sect. Swish. After that, Chu Hen's figure flashed down from the sky. Luo Mengchang hurriedly ran over to his side, and there was a trace of concern in her beautiful brows. "How are you? Are your injuries serious?" Chu Hen's faintly wrinkled eyebrows slowly relaxed. Faintly smiling, he said, "I'm fine. I won't die. Don't worry." "You're really too reckless." Luo Mengchang puckered her lips lightly, and then she withdrew a dew pill and passed it to him. "Quickly eat it. I'm always worried when I'm with you." Chu Hen smiled embarrassedly, and his warm expression seemed like a completely different person when compared to the cold, killing intent he revealed just now. After that, Mu Feng's group rushed over as well. "Ah, not bad. You." Mu Feng didn't say a word or pay any attention to Chu Hen's injuries, and he just walked forward and smashed his fist against Chu Hen's chest. "I'm at ease when I see that you're still so cool and handsome. Ha ha. Cough, cough." Chu Hen couldn't help but hold his chest and cough because Mu Feng's punch had almost caused him to bleed. "Be gentler. Why are you using so much strength?" Chu Hen scolded angrily. Hee, aren't you pretending to be dead? I thought that after not seeing you for so long, this handsome Feng's strength would definitely surpass yours. I didn't expect you to be so shameless. What kind of elixir did you eat to become so fierce?" Mu Feng said with a sneaky smile. He didn't feel that it was unfair because Chu Hen's strength far surpassed his. Mu Feng didn't like to compare, but he truly treated Chu Hen as a brother and friend. If he had to say, the only reason Mu Feng was jealous of Chu Hen was his luck with women. And at this moment, the Illusory Rain's sex group slowly walked over. I say, little brother, if you don't treat your injuries, you'll have a lingering illness. Xiao Rumen giggled. Her voice was as sweet as a silver bell, and it was very pleasant to the ear. She was clearly a young woman in her early 20s, but she had two different temperaments, the lightness of a young girl and the charm of maturity. F***ck, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to take advantage of me? Mu Feng hurriedly took a step forward and signaled the people of Heavenly Sword Pavilion to prepare for battle. Xiao Rumen's eyes flickered, suffusing with a soul-stealing charm. Her smile was enchanting, causing one's heart to palpitate. Hee, young master, it's better if you put away your sword. You still need to practice your swordsmanship. Oh, don't think that I won't hit you just because you're a woman. This young master has a move called undressing sword. Do you want to give it a try? Mu Feng snorted. His temperament was similar to that of a ruffian on the street. Xiao Rumen wasn't angry. She replied with a smile in her eyes. Then do you mind teaching this undressing sword to the person next to you? I like this type more. The person beside him? Mu Feng glanced at Chu Hen and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Your eyesight is bad. I'm more handsome than him. Stop bullshitting. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and said to Mu Feng in a low voice. He then looked straight at Xiao Rumen and said, What's the matter? I've already said that your injuries are very serious. Also, the dew pill in your hand won't be able to help you recover in a short period of time. This is for you. With that, Xiao Rumen raised her lily-white hand and a ray of light flew out from her hand. Ta! Chu Hen casually caught it in his palm. It was an exquisite jade bottle sealed with a red cloth. However, he could faintly feel a rather pure energy fluctuation within it. This contains the 100-flower sweet rain pill. It will help you recover in 2 days at most. Consider it a small gift from Big Sister. Xiao Rumen smiled faintly. Mu Feng hurriedly made a throat-slitting gesture and whispered, Don't fall for it. Be careful of poison. Hee, do you think I need to use poison in your current state? Xiao Rumen smiled. Her smile had a unique charm to it. That pair of bright and enchanting eyes seemed to have seen through everything. Xiao Rumen could already tell that Chu Hen was almost at the end of his tether. Chu Hen's eyes turned slightly cold. He could clearly feel that the bright and beautiful young woman in front of him was even more dangerous than the Shura sex Tu Yi. Even though Xiao Rumen was ranked 4th in the 7 absolutes of Heaven's Chosen, she was 2 ranks lower than Langley. However, he could not rule out the possibility that she had been pretending to be weak in the past and had hidden her true strength. Or perhaps, in recent years, his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. No matter what, Xiao Rumen was definitely not a simple person. At the same time, Chu Hen could more or less sense that she did not have any ill intentions. What's your motive? Chu Hen asked. Having no ill intentions did not mean that she had no motive. Are you interested in joining the Illusory Rain sect? Xiao Rumen smiled. No. Chu Hen answered without hesitation. I can satisfy any of your conditions. Her smiling eyes gave off an irresistible charm. Chu Hen cursed in his heart. This woman was really a vixen. However, he had seen quite a number of beauties, so he could still resist this bit of temptation. Luo Mingshang frowned slightly. Her gentle and beautiful eyes had a hint of strangeness. Chu Hen was still unmoved. Sorry, I'm not interested. All right then. Xiao Rumen did not insist, nor did she say anything else. If that's the case, we'll meet again if there's a chance. Wait. Just as she was about to turn around, Chu Hen called out to her. Xiao Rumen looked back and smiled. Why? Have you changed your mind? Chu Hen raised his eyelids slightly and said calmly, What you really want to know is what skill I just used, right? Xiao Ruoman smiled faintly, which meant that she had tacitly agreed. She wasn't the only one. Everyone in the room was extremely curious, and their faces were more or less filled with confusion. Buzz, the space trembled slightly and a white light flashed. A scroll appeared in Chu Hen's hand. The scroll was nearly 2 meters wide, and it was very eye-catching in his hand. Chapter 484. I'll lend it to you for half a year. When the time comes, return it to me. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen threw the scroll in his hand towards Xiao Ruoman in front of him. Ta! Xiao Ruoman opened her slender fingers and lightly caught the scroll in her hand. She raised her eyebrows slightly and asked with interest, "What is this?" "You'll know once you open it," Chu Hen said lightly. Xiao Ruoman raised her pretty eyes slightly. Immediately, she moved her palm and a cluster of powerful air waves stacked together. Voila! The scroll painting in Xiao Ruoman's hand was spread out like a banner. Everyone's heart skipped a beat and they hurriedly raised their heads to look at it. The scroll depicted a particularly strange scene. The vast universe of the 9 heavens was dim and the moon and stars were hazy. The background was the gloomy darkness of the night, and in the center of the scroll there was a pair of strange and demonic eyes. No matter from which angle one looked at this pair of eyes, one would feel as if they were staring at oneself. There was a kind of demonic feeling in the strangeness. It made one's heart palpitate inexplicably. Everyone's faces were filled with surprise and excitement. They wanted to observe more, but Xiao Ruoman's palm closed and the scroll quickly rolled up. Everyone's faces involuntarily showed some disappointment. However, Xiao Ruoman's face was in high spirits and her beautiful eyes were filled with a hint of surprise. "You're really willing to lend it to me to look at?" "I, Chu Hen, don't like to owe others," Chu Hen faintly replied. Shortly after, his tone became somewhat frivolous as he said, "I need to remind you that the technique contained within this visualization diagram is not something that can be easily comprehended. In half a year's time, how much you can comprehend from it will completely depend on your own ability. I don't think you have much ability to obtain much power from it." Hearing Chu Hen's undisguised disdain, Xiao Ruoman raised her thin eyebrows and asked with a smile in her eyes, "May I ask, how long did it take you to comprehend the technique you just used?" "Not long," Chu Hen answered without hesitation, "but it's not short either. The main thing is that it's very difficult to integrate the artistic conception of this painting. I don't want to say more. After you're done looking at it, return it to me as soon as possible." Xiao Ruoman giggled and put the scroll painting into her pocket. "If that's the case, then thank you, little brother. If there's anything in the future, feel free to come to the door of Illusory Rain to find me. Goodbye. I won't send you off," Chu Hen replied calmly. Soon after, Xiao Ruoman and the people from the Illusory Rain sect turned around and left. Mu Feng, on the other hand, pushed Chu Hen with a look of displeasure and said, "F***ck, was your head broken just now? Did you give away your trump card?" "It's fine. I know what I'm doing. Propriety? Propriety my ass. If that woman really learns the secret technique, you'll regret it." Mu Feng was rather dissatisfied. Everyone did not suspect that the thing that Chu Hen had just handed over was a fake. A normal fake would not be able to reveal that kind of strange and powerful aura. Furthermore, that scroll painting faintly emitted a faint aura of desolation. Presumably, it had been around for quite some time. However, the scroll was still preserved in perfect condition. It was obvious that it was not something that was casually forged. Other than Mu Feng, the others present were also puzzled by Chu Hen's actions. After all, no Wuxiu would easily reveal his trump card. Even if he was very confident, the other party would not be able to comprehend anything from it. Even if it was a 1 in 10,000 chance, it was still unsettling. No one knew that the power of Chu Hen's demon eye had nothing to do with the scroll. The scroll was the illusion technique activated by the eye's visualization diagram that he had obtained from the underground palace in the 10,000 Beast Ridge. As for what Chu Hen had just used, it was the power of a 4-star demon eye. The two did not match at all. There was no connection at all. The reason why Chu Hen did this was because he had another purpose. After today's battle, he had displayed the power of a 4-star demon eye in front of so many people. It might cause suspicion in the outside world. The secret that he had the demon eye sacred body could not be made public. In order to cover up this secret, Chu Hen's best way was to say that the technique he had just used was a power comprehension obtained from the visualization diagram. He also passed the visualization diagram to Xiao Ruoman. It could also divert everyone's attention to her. This was Chu Hen's plan to deceive everyone. The target was Xiao Ruoman. The illusory rain sect was also one of the sects that took away one of the Dubhe astral soul pearls from the Seven Souls' ancient kingdom. This made Chu Hen not have a good impression of the illusory rain sect from the beginning. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with using Xiao Ruoman. Of course, the illusion power contained in the visualization diagram was also a rather powerful killer move. In all fairness, Xiao Ruoman did not lose anything. The most important point was that Chu Hen did not understand Xiao Ruoman's character. It was hard to determine whether she was using peaceful means before resorting to force. First, she kindly gave him a bottle of healing medicine. Then, when everyone was unprepared, she would secretly make a move. After all, in addition to mastering the shocking technique, Chu Hen also obtained the Heavenly Spirit Sigil. If he didn't give Xiao Ruoman a piece of the pie, the other party wouldn't fall out with him. No one could guarantee that. Therefore, Chu Hen gave the visualization diagram that had nothing to do with the demon eye to her. Firstly, it was more secure. Secondly, it covered up the secret that he had the demon eye sacred body. Thirdly, it could be considered as shifting the attention of the outside world, which would cause a disturbance in the future, to Xiao Ruoman. This could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Hey, you couldn't have been bewitched by that woman, right? Seeing that Chu Hen did not speak, Mu Feng began to nag again. That woman is a dangerous breed. Besides, look at her, how can she be compared to Miss Mingxiang? You brat, don't not know how lucky you are. As Mu Feng spoke, he pulled Chu Hen's shoulder over and faced Luo Mingxiang. Luo Mingxiang seemed to be a little unhappy. She lowered her head slightly and avoided Chu Hen's gaze. See, Miss Mingxiang is jealous, hee. Mu Feng said sneakily. Chu Hen was stunned. Jealous? Jealous of what? Luo Mingxiang rolled her eyes at Mu Feng and said, Can you not talk nonsense? What do I have to be jealous of? That's right. Chu Hen echoed and scolded. Damn, I'm just being a busybody. Mu Feng's face was full of displeasure, and his little eyes were full of contempt. Hearing what Chu Hen said, Luo Mingxiang seemed to be even more unhappy. She simply turned her body and ignored him. Cough cough. At this moment, Chu Hen's injury also acted up, and he coughed out a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. Luo Mingxiang was shocked, and quickly turned around and said, Quickly take the healing medicine. Okay. Chu Hen nodded, and then put a light green pill into his mouth. Why don't you eat the 100-flower sweet rain pill that she gave you? Luo Mingxiang looked at him with some surprise. The pill that Chu Hen just ate was the dew pill that she gave him, and not the 100-flower pill that Xiao Ruoman gave him. Chu Hen gently sniffed and said, It's okay, it's fine. Are you stupid? The 100-flower pill is more effective. But this dew pill was given by you. Chu Hen replied with a smile. What a glib tongue. Luo Mingxiang pouted and scolded softly. However, her slightly knitted eyebrows slowly relaxed, and her beautiful eyes glowed with a faint light. By the way, Chu Hen, where are you going next? Mu Feng moved his head over again. Come with me to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion for a few days. Before Chu Hen could answer, Mu Feng made the decision for him. Anyway, you have nothing to do, go ahead. We haven't seen each other for so long, I'll take you to our place. That's settled, ha ha ha. Chu Hen's forehead was full of black lines. This guy did not give him a chance to think at all. But to be honest, Chu Hen really had nowhere to go now. It was not a bad idea to go to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to see the world. Mengxiang, we should go. At this moment, the team from Moon End City was also preparing to leave. Song Yuanjia, the fist master, took a few steps forward and spoke in a somewhat unfriendly tone. This time, the Moon City had traveled thousands of miles to come to the jungle of Mount Mang, but they found nothing. 3 of the 4 cursed seals had fallen into the hands of Xiao Ruaman, Tu Yi, and Chu Hen respectively. As for the clone seal, no one knew who had it. The people of Moon End City could not feel happy about this. However, the main reason was that Luo Mingxiang and Chu Hen seemed to have an unusual relationship. Of course, compared with Shura sect and Thousand Crane sect, Moon End City was still considered good. Since the mission was over, they naturally prepared to return to Moon End City. But seeing that Luo Mingxiang was about to leave, Chu Hen frowned slightly. However, before Luo Mingxiang could answer, Mu Feng said hurriedly, Miss Mingxiang, why don't you stay here and go to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion with us for a few days? It's rare that Chu Hen is here. Don't tell me you want to leave him so soon? This guy, Mu Feng, was really not afraid of offending people. He just had to mention the pot that was not opened. The people of Moon End City secretly scolded Mu Feng for being a busybody. Song Yuanjia's face also turned cold, faintly covered with a layer of frost. Mengxiang, if you don't go back, it'll be hard for me to explain to Patriarch Luo and my brother. Song Yuanjia's tone was a little tough. Luo Mingxiang did not take it seriously and replied indifferently, I haven't been to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. I've always wanted to go to the Holy Land of Swordsmanship in the 100 Kingdoms state to have a look. You guys go first. I'll go back in a few days. Don't be so willful, okay? Song Yuanjia was a little angry. Ahem. Aren't you guys annoying? What's the relationship between Miss Mingxiang and you? Why do you care where she goes? Mu Feng put his hands on his hips and pointed at Song Yuanjia as he scolded. Song Yuanjia's eyes turned cold, and a gust of cold anger was released. These days, many readers suddenly asked me what the fresh flower list is. Why didn't they see the fresh flower list? I was a bit depressed when I asked. Later on, I found out that these readers read this book on another website. I'll give you a simple explanation. Wu Ji Divine King was first published on the Chulang website. Only by subscribing to the Chulang website can you send flowers to this book. As for software or websites like Palm Reader, Pocket Book House, Migu Reading, these are all third-party sales channels, and these websites don't have the fresh flower list. I'm quite speechless about this matter, so I'll explain it clearly to everyone here. Chapter 485. Mu Feng was really not afraid of offending people at all. He opened his mouth and scolded Song Yuanjia. What's the relationship between Miss Mingxiang and you? Why do you care where she goes? Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Yuanjia's eyes turned cold. A strong and restless aura surged out from his body. What does this have to do with you? Oh? You want to fight? Chu Hen, I'll leave it to you. Upon hearing Mu Feng's words, the faces of the people in Moon End City changed. The scene of Shura sect being slaughtered replayed in their minds. Song Yuanjia's aura subdued a little. At the same time, Chu Hen also stepped forward and said, Everyone, please feel angry. As he spoke, he looked at Luo Mingxiang and said, It's her freedom to go wherever she wants. Why do you force her to go back? If you're worried about her safety, I, Chu Hen, promise you that I will send her back to Moon End City unscathed. However, Song Yuanjia did not seem to appreciate it. This is our Moon End City's matter. I hope you don't interfere. Chu Hen frowned slightly, and his tone was relatively cold. But she said that she doesn't want to go back for the time being. Do you want to kidnap her and bring her back? Song Yuanjia's face darkened. He looked at Luo Mingxiang again. The latter looked indifferent, and there was a hint of playfulness in her beautiful eyes. It seemed that she really did not want to return to Moon End City. Song Yuanjia suppressed the anger in his heart. Even though Chu Hen's injuries weren't light, with the people of Heavenly Sword Pavilion here, it wasn't wise to fight them head-on. Humph, you just almost killed Tuyi. I advise you not to think that you're invincible. Oh. Mu Feng smiled proudly and shook his right index finger at Song Yuanzhi disdainfully. Not only Tuyi but also Ko Tianqian, Sherwin Star, and more than a dozen experts of Shura sect. If you have the ability, kill a few of them for me to see. You? Bickering with Mu Feng was asking for trouble. Song Yuanzhi coldly glanced at them and said, I hope you can keep a low profile. For some people, those people aren't even worth looking at. Chu Hen smiled faintly and cupped his fists slightly. Haha, thank you for your reminder. I've learned a lot. Humph. Song Yuanzhi swung his sleeves. Let's go. Although the rest of the people in Moon End City were discontented, they had no choice but to follow behind and leave without saying a word. Then Chu Hen looked back at Mu Feng and said, You really know how to make enemies for me. Aren't you afraid that things will get out of hand? Hee for Miss Meng Shang. Mu Feng smiled slyly. Chu Hen didn't say anything more. After a simple tidying up, everyone was ready to leave this place and set off for the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Heavenly Sword Pavilion. This was a sect that focused on swordsmanship. Basically, more than 90% of the disciples in this sect were sword cultivators. Because of its unique style, Heavenly Sword Pavilion had the reputation of Holy Land of Swordsmanship in the 100 Kingdoms Prefecture. The master of Sword Pavilion, Mu Xiong Kai, was a great swordsman of his generation. With his shocking demon sword, he shook the entire prefecture and dominated an area. Heavenly Sword Pavilion had always been a relatively low-key sect. It was rumored that the relationship between Heavenly Sword Pavilion and several other sects was not particularly good, and there were many unknown grievances between them. Nearly 10 days later, Chu Hen and Luo Mingshang followed Mu Feng and the others out of the Mang Mountain jungle and arrived at Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Looking from afar, the mountain gate of Heavenly Sword Pavilion could be said to be extraordinary and majestic. The majestic peaks pierced the sky, and the abundant mountain spiritual energy permeated between the peaks, like clouds, like holy light. The majestic eagles soared in the sky, piercing through the clouds. The loud and clear cries reverberated in the mountains, with the power to swallow the mountains and rivers. On the peak of the steep and towering mountain, there were many buildings and pavilions. The imposing pavilions were surrounded by clouds, showing the solemnity and majesty of the holy land of swordsmanship. This young master is back. On the frightening sword peak, Mu Feng's voice reverberated like rolling thunder. Originally, he thought that there would be a large crowd coming to welcome him, but the reality was that when everyone saw Mu Feng, they all consciously avoided him, as if they had seen the god of plague, hiding far away. Who? A cool breeze blew, making it seem especially cold and cheerless. The mountain gate, which was clearly bustling just a moment ago, suddenly became cold and silent. Ahem, ahem, ahem. Mu Feng pretended to cough twice, then awkwardly turned his head towards Chu Hen and Luo Mengshang and said, About that, it's probably because everyone is very busy today, so let's go by ourselves. Chu Hen was a little stunned for a moment. Although he already knew that Mu Feng was not well received in Heavenly Sword Pavilion, he did not expect it to be like this. Even Luo Mengchang could not help but ask, What kind of atrocious thing did you do? Well, I did not do anything. It's just that everyone has a little misunderstanding about me. I am handsome. It's easy to make people jealous. Mu Feng said shamelessly. This made the people of Heavenly Sword Pavilion, who had returned from the Mang Mountain Forest, feel ashamed. Young master, please entertain the 2 guests first. We will first report the results of this mission to the pavilion master and the elders. Go! Yes, young master. Everyone ran away as if they were fleeing, leaving behind only Chu Hen, Luo Mingshang and Mu Feng. Let's go, let me show you around the main peak of Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Mu Feng led the 2 of them forward. Soon, the 2 of them came to an imposing square. The south side of the square was connected to the heavenly stairway of the mountain gate. A huge stone sword dozens of meters high was inserted into the ground, emitting a biting cold aura. On the body of the stone sword, 3 big words were engraved. Shocking Sword Peak. Even if it was Chu Hen, he was also faintly suppressed by the might emitted by the huge sword. There were many magnificent buildings on the Shocking Sword Peak, and all of them were quite imposing. On the north side there was a magnificent pavilion. The pavilion was hundreds of meters high, surrounded by clouds and mist, emitting a majestic aura. However, what attracted Chu Hen's attention was the statue that stood in the area in front of the pavilion, about 20 to 30 meters high. It was a statue in the shape of a human. From its appearance, it looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. The man had sword-like eyebrows, bright eyes, a square mouth, and a high nose. He had an extraordinary heroic aura, and his hands were behind his back as he looked at the sky in front of him. Even though it was only a statue, it gave off the feeling that it was a god standing tall in this place. It made people feel awe and respect. "That's the founder of Heavenly Sword Pavilion," Mu Feng said casually. "Oh." Chu Hen was slightly surprised. "That's your sword ancestor statue?" Hee, that's it. I really don't know what's so good about a broken stone placed here all day long, and everyone looks at it as if it's their own father. Back then, when this handsome Feng ran away from home, I waved my brush and wrote on the sculpture. Forget it." Mu Feng curled his lips and did not continue. Luo Mengchang, who was standing next to Chu Hen, smiled slightly, and then whispered a few words in Chu Hen's ear. Immediately after, Chu Hen laughed involuntarily and helplessly shook his head. There were quite a lot of people on the Shocking Sword Plaza. There were young people of both genders. In the center of the plaza, there were more than 10 people with powerful auras setting up some kind of formation. Mu Feng looked puzzled. Coincidentally, one of the elders in his 50s also saw Mu Feng and the other 2 walking over. "Young master, you're back?" "Yes." Mu Feng nodded, then asked, "What are you doing?" "Young master, you still don't know?" "Know what?" Chapter 486. In another month, the Sword Cannon Grand Meet will be held in our sect. We need to strengthen the defensive formation of the frightening Sword Peak, the old man in his 50s said. Judging from his appearance and demeanor, he must be an elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Sword Cannon Grand Meet? Mu Feng could not help but be startled. His face revealed some astonishment. Luo Mengchang, who was standing next to Chu Hen, raised her eyebrows as a hint of surprise flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her red lips parted slightly as she muttered softly, "So 5 years have passed unknowingly. What's the Sword Cannon Grand Meet?" Chu Hen asked. He did not know anything about the Sword Cannon Grand Meet. Luo Mengchang raised her head slightly and explained gently, "The Prefecture Grand Meet is held once every 5 years. Only the first-rate forces and sects in the prefecture are qualified to hold it. In the past few decades, all the major sects have held such a grand meet. For example, the Azura sect holds the Blood Dance Grand Meet, the Thousand Crane sect holds the Thousand Brilliance Grand Meet, the Illusory Rain sect holds the Illusory Sky Grand Meet. As for the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, it's the Sword Cannon Grand Meet." "Oh? The Prefecture Grand Meet?" Chu Hen raised his eyebrows as a hint of interest flashed in his eyes. Luo Mengchang smiled faintly and continued, "This Prefecture Grand Meet is definitely the largest Grand Meet in the entire 100 Nations Prefecture, with the largest number of people. All the sects, clans, and forces in the Prefecture Grand Meet will participate. It can be said that this is a battle between the younger generation of the various forces, and it is also the battle where the monstrous geniuses become famous." Chu Hen was amazed after listening to Luo Mengchang's detailed explanation. Just thinking about the Grand Meet where all the clans in the prefecture would participate, he could imagine how grand it would be. "Who are these 2? The old man then noticed Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang behind Mu Feng. "My friends." Mu Feng introduced casually before he looked at the two of them and said, "Looks like you've made the right choice to follow me. It'll be lively when the sword cannon grand meet happens." Chu Hen smiled and did not say anything. However, to be honest, he was looking forward to such a grand ceremony. Moreover, they did not have to participate in the competition. At the very least, they could broaden their horizons and see the various ultimate techniques of the various first-rate sects and factions. Young Master, the entire Heavenly Sword Pavilion is working hard. As the young master of our sect, everyone is looking forward to you showing your prowess at the gathering and shocking our Heavenly Sword Pavilion," the old man said in a serious tone. Hearing this, Mu Feng's eyelids drooped and his eyes were filled with disdain. "Tch, what does that have to do with me? Don't you have Jian Aonan? What do you want me to do?" "Young master, you can't say that. Aonan is the direct disciple of the Pavilion Master, and you are the young master of our sect. The two of you are the future of our sect. All right. Stop talking so much. I'm going to die of annoyance." Mu Feng waved his hand discontentedly. "Continue with your work. I will first arrange for my two friends to rest in the guest room. As soon as they come back, they don't let us have any peace and quiet. Old men are really troublesome." You sigh. After being scolded by Mu Feng, the old man sighed helplessly and felt a sense of desolation. Mu Feng ignored him and led Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang to the other side of the square. "You were too rude just now. He was doing it for your own good," Luo Mengchang casually reminded him. Mu Feng shook his head and sneered. "It's just on the surface. In the entire Heavenly Sword Pavilion, no one actually thinks highly of me. Even though they say that they want me to work harder, in their hearts, they are all wondering why Mu Xiongcai gave birth to such an idiot." Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang were both stunned. Mu Feng, who had always been frivolous, felt an indescribable sense of melancholy when he said those words. Just now, he had come back from the Mang Mountain forest, but as the young master, no one had come to welcome him, everyone had stayed far away. Chu Hen seemed to understand why the other party dragged him and Luo Mengchang to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Because there was no one here who wanted to see him. However, Mu Feng still pretended to be nonchalant all day long, fooling around with himself and going crazy with me. Just as Chu Hen was about to say something, a chord in the depths of his heart suddenly trembled. Buzz. A strange feeling was fleeting. Just now, there seemed to be a strange power that triggered the power of the bloodline boundary in his body. Chu Hen stopped in his tracks and looked up. On the left side, the statue of the sword ancestor of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion stood there like a god, guarding this part of the world. "What's wrong?" Luo Mengchang and Mu Feng turned around one after another. Chu Hen thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Nothing." A moment later, Mu Feng placed Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang in the west wing of the VIP guest room. The two of them were only separated by a courtyard. Because of the tiredness of the journey, Mu Feng told the two of them to rest first and come back later to find them. Whoosh! In a spacious and bright room, Chu Hen relaxed and laid on the soft and comfortable bed. He felt carefree as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. The rare relaxation made Chu Hen involuntarily close his eyes and fall asleep. It was too tiring. From the Thousand Crane sect all the way to the Mang Mountain forest, it could be said that he had experienced many dangerous trials during this period. He killed the Darkwing Flood Dragon, fought against the top 3 disciples of the Hall of Disciples, chased after Langley, and then broke into the place where the Beast King was sealed alone. He fought against Ko Tianchen, Sherwin Planet, and Tu Yi and other top geniuses. In Chu Hen's pursuit of martial arts, it seemed as if he had never stopped. However, Chu Hen's harvest was also not little. Chu Hen slept all the way until the evening, which was hard to come by. When he woke up, the sky outside was already dark. A soft, hazy light shone through the half-open window. How satisfying! Chu Hen got up and stretched his body, then casually lit the candle on the candlestick. The bright candlelight immediately spread to every corner of the room. And, just at this time, an obscure yet powerful energy ripple was transmitted from Chu Hen's body. Within the powerful might, it emitted an astonishing, unrivaled, ferocious might. "Damn brat, I'm afraid you forgot what you didn't do?" The sacred winged heavenly flame bird's low and cold voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Chu Hen pretended to be surprised. "What is it?" "Nothing." Don't play dumb in front of me. We agreed before. Now that you have broken through to the 4-star demon eyes, it's time for you to fulfill your promise." "What promise?" Chu Hen continued to play dumb. "Share the boundary power of your demon eyes bloodline with me." Cough, cough. Chu Hen coughed twice and said, "I say, damn bird, you're the one who didn't get it right. This is what I said. If you can help me break through to the 4-star demon eyes, I will consider this matter. Since you're considering it, you should at least give me some time. Am I right?" "Cunning thing, you dare to play word games with me." The sacred winged heavenly flame bird's tone seemed to be a little angry. A surging beast's demonic aura surged in Chu Hen's body. Chaotic golden flames spread out and began to corrode Chu Hen's major meridians. Chu Hen smiled helplessly. "Can you calm down a bit? I didn't say I wouldn't agree, but I did say I would consider your conditions. I didn't say I would immediately share the power of my demon eyes with you after breaking through. If it were you, would you do that? How long do you need to consider? At the very least, I need to know what kind of harm it will cause me after I share the boundary power of my bloodline with you, and what kind of precautions I need to take. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to make this deal with you." Chu Hen said. What kind of species was the sacred winged heavenly flame bird? It wasn't that Chu Hen didn't know. Even a terrifying existence like the white-scaled serpent emperor trembled in fear when it saw it. This was enough to prove how terrifying it was. Although the sacred winged heavenly flame bird was indeed a dragon in shallow waters and a tiger out of the plains, it definitely wasn't something anyone could provoke. There was no reason for Chu Hen not to be wary of it. "Humph, in the end, you still don't believe me." "That's right," Chu Hen replied firmly. "I indeed don't dare to believe you. I will give you an answer within a year. What's the point of stalling for time?" The sacred winged heavenly flame bird snorted. "You've already been sealed in the 10,000 Beast Ridge for thousands of years. Do you care about waiting another year? You also know that the power of my demon eyes has just broken through to the 4-star level. I still need to consolidate the power of my sacred body. You also hope that I can fuse with your power in my best state, right? Since you said it, I'll give you a year. If you go back on your word then, I'll let you know the consequences of angering me." Buzz. Whoosh. With that, the golden flames and colorful light that enveloped Chu Hen's body quickly dissipated. The murderous aura also gradually retracted. Phew. Chu Hen let out a soft sigh of relief. There was a hint of solemnity between his brows. When interacting with an extremely dangerous species like the sacred winged heavenly flame bird, one had to be more vigilant. There was only a year left. It was relatively long for ordinary people, but for Wu Xiu it was practically a flash. No matter what, Chu Hen first had to ensure the safety of himself and the people around him. Chapter 487. When the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow finally calmed down, Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief, but his mood also became heavier. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was not as stubborn as he had imagined. However, the more this was the case, the more it showed how terrifying the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was, because it was not afraid of Chu Hen going back on his word. "Forget it. I'll think about it when the time comes." The most important thing right now was to quickly increase his strength in all aspects. Even if he really had to cooperate with the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow in the end, he still had to protect himself and the people around him. Hee. Suddenly, a heavy knock came from outside the door. Who, creak. Without waiting for Chu Hen to finish speaking, the door was pushed open. Mu Feng swaggered in with the wind behind him. Hungry? I brought you some food. Mu Feng held a tray in his hands with a few dishes and a pot of wine. He put down the food and said, I just asked a servant to bring some snacks to Miss Mengchang. Come, we haven't seen each other for so long, let's have a drink, hee. Chu Hen was speechless. This guy was still as rude as before. Then, the two sat around the round table. Mu Feng casually filled his wine cup, clinked it lightly, and drank it in one gulp. Hiss. Mu Feng nodded happily. Great, I haven't had a drink with anyone in over a year. Chu Hen smiled helplessly. As a young master, what kind of outrageous things have you done? If it was any other time, Mu Feng would definitely say that others were jealous of his good looks. However, this time, Mu Feng actually had a self-mocking smile on his face. He said as he poured wine, If I said that I haven't seen my father more than 10 times since I was young, would you believe me? Chu Hen was slightly surprised. You definitely won't believe it. How can there be a son in this world who lives under the same roof as his father and sees him less than 10 times? But this is true. In his eyes there is only the sword. Only the sword. The sword is his son, the sword is his woman, the sword is like his father. Other than the sword, there is still the sword. Mu Feng's expression changed, and there wasn't the slightest trace of the usual indecency on his face. Chu Hen listened quietly and didn't interrupt him. Mu Feng gulped down another glass of wine, shook his head and said, Not long after you left the Sacred Star Empire, I came back from Tensei Prefecture. After I came back, guess what? F***ck, he actually changed. In the past, I couldn't see him, but after that, he often came to find me, but I didn't know how to face him. I felt ill at ease just being alone with him. He even said that he would personally teach me swordsmanship, but I rejected him without even thinking about it. Mu Feng gulped down more than 10 glasses of wine in a row, and his eyes were slightly red. He sat next to Chu Hen and patted him on the shoulder. His voice was slightly drunk as he said, Hee bro, do you know? He's my father. Every time I look at him, I can remember the scene when he broke 3 of my ribs with a kick. Do you really think I'm a pervert? Do you really think I'm shameless? Since I was young, the only reason I did that was to make my presence known. To make the man who was called my father look at me a few more times. Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief. He didn't expect Mu Feng to hide so much bitterness in his heart. He also didn't know how to comfort him. TSK, I really can't understand why I'm living in such an environment. Come to think of it, the time when I was in the Sacred Star Empire was the happiest. If it wasn't for the great storm you created back then, I think I would have to stay here for a few more years. Mu Feng's self-healing ability was quite fast. Perhaps because he was used to it since he was young. He quickly put away his suppressed emotions and laughed heartily. How have you been these past 2 years? I heard that Long Qingyang has established a force in the Hidden Wind region, and I thought you would stay there to help him. Chu Hen smiled. Speaking of this, I haven't thanked you properly for sending people to help us when we were escaping from the Sacred Star Empire. Why are we still being so polite? Mu Feng waved his hand and a strange light flashed in his eyes. But seriously, Miss Mengshang, don't let me down. I sent people to escort you all the way to the Hidden Wind region. What? Chu Hen couldn't help but stare blankly as he revealed a surprised expression. Don't tell me you don't know? Mu Feng glared at him. Chu Hen shook his head. He really didn't know about this. Back then, Chu Hen had been in a coma on the way to the Hidden Wind region from the Sacred Star Empire. When he woke up, Long Qingyang had told him that Yu Qinyu, Mu Feng, and Principal Jiang of the Tensei Prefecture had helped him during the escape, but he didn't mention Luo Mengshang. What he didn't know was that Luo Mengshang had instructed Long Xuanxuang to tell Chu Hen that she had returned to Moon City if he asked. If he didn't ask, then don't say anything. During that time, Chu Hen had been in a depressed state. In the first half of the month, He didn't even speak much, let alone ask about the things that had happened during the escape. Of course, even if Chu Hen hadn't asked, Long Qingyang had planned to find a suitable opportunity to tell Chu Hen. However, when the family of generals was first established, Long Qingyang was busy with all sorts of things, and Chu Hen was nowhere to be found. Hence, he slowly forgot about that matter. In the end, Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang left the Hidden Wind region. Thus, this matter was over by a freak combination of factors. No wonder Luo Mengshang asked me if I didn't know she was in Moon City when we were in the Mang Mountains. Chu Hen said, a little stunned. Mu Feng shook his head, his eyes full of disdain. What are you standing there for? Why aren't you going to see her? Haven't you learned a thing or two from me when I pick up girls? I'll give you 2 words, shameless. Screw you. The moonlight was picturesque. In front of the window by the candlestick, Luo Mengshang sat quietly by the window, wearing a white evening dress that was as loose as muslin. The VIP rooms of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion were built on the edge of the mountain range. Standing by the window, one could see the magnificent mountains, rivers, valleys, abysses and cliffs. This kind of architectural structure was magnificent in its own way. The silvery frost-like brilliance shone on the window, sprinkling on Luo Mengshang's body. The beauty was like jade, adding a bit of hazy beauty. Ha ha! At this moment, someone knocked on the door, interrupting Luo Mengshang's thoughts. Who is it? It's me, Chu Hen. Are you asleep? What's the matter so late at night? Before Chu Hen could finish speaking, the door to the room opened, and a beautiful and refined face came into view. Luo Mengchang's long hair, as beautiful as ink, was scattered behind her shoulders, and a few strands of hair hung on both sides of her cheeks. Under the hazy candlelight of the night, she was especially moving. Although the two were very familiar with each other, Luo Mengshang still amazed Chu Hen from time to time. What's wrong? Luo Mengshang saw him staring at her without saying a word, and could not help but ask. That. Chu Hen did not know where to start and casually said, Thank you. Luo Mengshang smiled smartly. Why are you suddenly saying this? Thank you for escorting me to the Hidden Wind region. Big brother and second sister did not tell me about this. If not for Mu Feng mentioning it, I would not have known, so. Chu Hen felt a little ashamed. Luo Mengshang shook her head. It's okay, I told them not to tell you. Why? No reason. Luo Mengshang turned her body, back facing Chu Hen, and walked back to the side of the window. Her eyes were like autumn water, and there was a hint of a complicated look. Chu Hen followed her into the room and reached her side. And at this moment, Luo Mengchang suddenly felt a pair of strong arms gently pulling her into an embrace from behind. A chest that was not broad but was very stable was leaning against her back. You? Luo Mengshang was taken aback by Chu Hen's action, and subconsciously pushed him away. However, Chu Hen did not give the other party a chance, and his hands wrapped around her jade-like arms, not letting her break free. After struggling a few times, she could not break free. Luo Mengshang was angry, annoyed and embarrassed, and her pretty face was red. Her silver teeth bit her red lips, and she said with dissatisfaction, You better behave. I'm not being dishonest. Chu Hen lowered his head and leaned on Luo Mengshang's left shoulder, and the faint fragrance of her body and fresh hair filled his nose. It was very pleasant. Mengshang, let me ask you a question. What? Luo Mengshang lowered her head, and her slender jade-like hands clasped together, her fingers gently rubbing the back of her hand, and her soft body gently leaned on Chu Hen's chest. Do you like me? Chu Hen asked. Luo Mengshang was angry and amused at the same time, and she secretly cursed this bastard for asking such a ridiculous question while hugging her like this. She really wanted to kick him off the cliff from the window. I don't like you, Luo Mengshang replied. You really don't like me? Of course. All right then. Chu Hen seemed a little disappointed, and then immediately said, I seem to like you quite a bit. Luo Mingshang's beautiful eyes moved, and she smiled faintly, then her thin eyebrows raised slightly, and she pretended to be indifferent as she replied, "There are many people who like me. What's your ranking?" "I should be ranked first." "Should be? Huh." Chu Hen was stunned at first, and then quickly changed his words. "I should be ranked first." TCH glib-tongued. "Could it be that you learned all this from Mu Feng?" Cough, cough, cough. "No." Chu Hen smiled a little proudly, and then said, "Mengshang, are you willing to accept me?" The gentle voice whispered in her ear, and the slightly heavy breath blew on Luo Mingshang's ear, making it a little itchy. Luo Mingshang secretly cursed Chu Hen for not understanding the mind of a girl at all. Then she replied, "It depends on your performance." "I got it," Chu Hen replied with satisfaction, and could not help but hug her tighter. Although in the past few years, Chu Hen had experienced all kinds of life and death battles, and his mind had become more mature, he did not have much contact with the relationship between a man and a woman. As for the time when they were in Flame City, Chu Hen was more like a naive and innocent love for Yi Yu, and there was no such thing as feelings. However, for Luo Mingshang it was a completely different feeling. This was true love between a man and a woman. "Oh yes, I have something to show you," Luo Mingshang suddenly said. "Huh!" Chu Hen was stunned at first, and then reluctantly released her from his arms. Immediately, Luo Mingshang moved her palm, and a white light flashed, and a strange stone appeared in her hand. There were soft light patterns flashing on the stone, and the bright light patterns were like two swimming fishes playing with each other. Chapter 488. Doppelganger Sigil? Looking at the soft light patterns on the strange stone that Luo Mingshang suddenly took out, Chu Hen's face showed a hint of surprise. "You got it! I picked it up." Luo Mingshang's red lips parted slightly as she replied softly. "Picked it up?" "Yes. When you were fighting with Ko Tianchen that day, a lot of stones were swept away. This stone happened to be next to me, so I picked it up." This. After listening to Luo Mingshang's answer, Chu Hen could not help but feel a little amused. Other people would fight to the death for the four-sided sigil, but Luo Mingshang could pick up this doppelganger sigil just by standing at a random place. Was she not only good-looking but also had such good luck? "Here." Luo Mingshang handed the doppelganger sigil to him. Chu Hen was stunned. "Why are you giving it to me?" Luo Mingshang's beautiful eyes rippled slightly as a hint of gentleness faintly appeared in her beautiful eyes. She looked at Chu Hen and said, "You have mastered the power of this sigil, so you will have more ability to protect yourself. I know that you still have a lot of things to complete, and I also know that you have always been eager for power. And I don't want to see you get hurt again." Luo Mingshang's voice was as light as silk and her beautiful eyes were like water. Chu Hen's heartstrings trembled slightly as if there was a warm current flowing through his heart. Immediately, Chu Hen's palm caressed Luo Mingshang's beautiful cheeks and smiled gently. "Keep this for yourself. If one day I am not by your side and you encounter difficulties, at least you will have the ability to protect yourself. Similarly, I don't want to see you get hurt." Luo Mingshang raised her eyebrows slightly as a hint of sweetness faintly appeared in her heart. "Don't underestimate me, maybe I will even surpass you in the future." Chu Hen smiled. "Yes, I believe you, but that's in the future. Now you must listen to me. What's more, I already have the Heavenly Spirit Sigil. If I control two sigil powers at the same time, it will take less time to adapt to one power." However, seeing Chu Hen's determined look, Luo Mingshang no longer insisted. "Then promise me that you won't hurt yourself again." "Okay." Chu Hen nodded his head and said, "I'll help you extract this seal." Subsequently, Chu Hen took the stone from Luo Mingshang's hand, and a wisp of vigorous true yuan separated from his body and injected it into the stone. Buzz! In an instant, a restless energy fluctuation was released from the stone. The patterns on the surface quickly lit up, and the airflow in the room became especially chaotic. The space faintly trembled, and a fist-sized silver rune separated from the stone. The silver runes emitted an especially joyous and restless energy. Chu Hen carefully controlled the rune that looked like a pair of fishes playing with each other and moved it towards Luo Mingshang's forehead. The piercingly cold wind caused Luo Mingshang's beautiful long hair to flutter in the wind. "Prepare to fuse the rune," Chu Hen reminded her. Luo Mingshang nodded, and strong true yuan overflowed from the yuan dan in her body, covering her body like a thin layer of gauze. Buzz, under Chu Hen's control, the rune of the rune quickly shrank when it approached Luo Mingshang's forehead. In the blink of an eye, the rune of the rune turned into the size of a fingernail, and then integrated into the space between Luo Mingshang's eyebrows. When the silver rune of the rune fused with the true yuan, there were traces of ripples in the air. The true yuan that covered her body was obviously a lot more chaotic, and the space between Luo Mingshang's eyebrows seemed to flicker, adding a bit of holiness and beauty to her. The process of the rune fusing was very smooth. In just a few seconds, Luo Mingshang's aura stabilized, and the silver light between her eyebrows also dissipated and hid. Meanwhile, the stone in Chu Hen's hand had already become dim, and had become an ordinary stone. "How is it? Can you control the power of this rune?" Chu Hen asked. Luo Mingshang nodded lightly. "Yes, it's no problem." "That's good. Do you plan to participate in the Sword Manual Grand Meet in a month?" "I haven't thought about it yet. I'll see." Chu Hen answered without hesitation. A hint of caution flashed in Luo Mingshang's eyes. At that time, almost all the top geniuses in the province will be gathered there. If you want to participate, don't compete with others. Compared to before, Luo Mingshang did not seem to hide her concern for Chu Hen anymore. The thin layer of paper between the two of them had been pierced, and their respective feelings would gradually be accepted by the other party. When Chu Hen returned to his room, Mu Feng had already left. There was no doubt that at this moment, Chu Hen's heart was relaxed and happy. However, when he thought about the terrifying monster that could go berserk at any time hidden in his body, he immediately felt a lot heavier. At this point, he could only take it one step at a time. Immediately, Chu Hen sat on the bed. With a thought, a golden ball of light appeared in his palm. With a gentle wave of his palm, the ball of light flew up and floated in front of him. Inside the ball of light that was as light as gauze, a golden rune shone with a sparkling luster. The rune's appearance was similar to two small wings. Upon closer inspection, one could see that there were fine black stripes on the wings, four-sided heavenly spirit sigil. In order to obtain this sigil, it was not easy, and it led to a series of intense battles. However, in the end, it still fell into the hands of Chu Hen. Buzz, in the next moment, surging true origin was released from Chu Hen's body, and a ray of light flashed between his eyebrows. Under the guidance of an invisible suction force, the heavenly spirit sigil swept toward Chu Hen's forehead. The sigil's rune shrunk rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it turned from the size of a fist to the size of a fingernail. Immediately after, there seemed to be a strange pattern drawn between Chu Hen's eyebrows. It was as dazzling as a golden flame cloud. Feeling the restless true origin in his body, Chu Hen began to calm his breathing. Integrating the sigil into his body was not a difficult task. The real difficulty was in controlling and mastering the sigil's power. Just like when Chu Hen first used the fire sigil, water sigil, frost sigil, and so on. When he first used the sigil's power, he suffered a lot. Just the number of times he was sent flying by the sigil's power was uncountable. At that time, in Tensei Prefecture, even his house was almost torn down. Moreover, the power contained in this heavenly spirit sigil was far from what those ordinary sigil could compare to. Therefore, Chu Hen had only completed the first step. If he wanted to successfully operate the heavenly spirit sigil, he would need to spend a lot of time. Chu Hen did not plan to start controlling the sigil's power now. Chapter 489. The successful integration of the heavenly spirit curse seal was considered to have completed the first step. If he wanted to skillfully use the power of the curse seal, it would take a lot of time. Soon after, Chu Hen's palm moved, and another item appeared in his hand. This item was a piece of copper plate that shone with golden light. On the copper plate there were subtle, strange lines flowing, exquisite and clear, bright as a mirror, and it looked quite extraordinary. This copper plate was the thing that exploded out of nowhere after the turmoil that occurred in the underground palace where the white-scaled serpent emperor was sealed. If it weren't for the keen detection of Chu Hen's demon eye, he wouldn't have found this copper plate. Something that could be preserved so well under such a violent shock at that time was definitely not an ordinary thing. Chu Hen carefully observed the copper plate in front of him. The subtle and delicate patterns were like strange vines and mysterious talismans. Immediately, Chu Hen separated a wisp of true essence and injected it into the copper plate. However, as soon as the true essence was integrated into it, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, and it was immediately swallowed clean. This is the power not enough? Chu Hen muttered to himself, and then a more vigorous and majestic true essence emerged from his body and poured into the copper plate. But the result was still the same, and there was still no reaction. Subsequently, Chu Hen integrated the power of chaos and the power of the demon eye into it. But it was still the same as before. No matter how Chu Hen injected power into it, the copper plate was like a black hole, and the energy power that entered it was directly swallowed up. After trying many times to no avail, Chu Hen couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. What kind of strange thing was this? With his own peak of the third-order void-piercing realm, close to the fourth-order cultivation base, he couldn't even stir up a trace of ripples. Wait, could it be? Chu Hen patted his head and suddenly remembered something. His eyes were cold, and then a surging Reiki energy spread out from the Naiwan Palace, and the pale golden light flowed into the copper plate like a clear stream. Buzz, in the next moment the copper piece, which had been motionless all this while, suddenly released waves of strange energy fluctuations. A brilliant light blossomed from within, and the mysterious talismans that covered its surface flowed like vines of light, bright and beautiful, like the radiance of the stars. It was effective. Chu Hen's heart lit up, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Just now, when he thought about it, the appearance of the copper plate in the sealed area must have something to do with Senior Shifeng Zi. As for Shifeng Zi, he was an Earth-rank tattoo master. Therefore, it was related to Reiki energy and not true yuan. Buzz, the bright copper shone with a dazzling luster. It was as if some kind of treasure that had been silent for a long time was instantly activated. Along with a bright brilliance, under Chu Hen's astonished gaze, countless bright light patterns swarmed out from the copper plate. This is? Chu Hen became more and more surprised. In just a few blinks of an eye, a brilliant light curtain immediately floated in front of Chu Hen, and numerous secret talismans of talismans appeared in front of Chu Hen. The spacious room was brightly illuminated, luxuriously and dazzlingly. It turned out to be talismans. There were actually thousands of talismans. However, what made Chu Hen even more dumbfounded was that out of the several thousand runes in front of him, the ones that he recognized could be counted on his fingers. The talismans that Chu Hen learned from the Phantom Bell were the inheritance left by Lei Huan, the first patriarch of Saint Bell City. As a spiritual tattooist, Lei Huan had mastered more than 10,000 talismans. However, among the tens of thousands of talismans that Chu Hen knew, only a few existed in the talismans in front of him. Judging from the peculiar structure and complexity of these talismans, it was obvious that they were more than what Chu Hen knew in the past. It seems that these are probably the ancient books left by Senior Shifeng Zi. Immediately, Chu Hen once again penetrated the copper plate with the perception of Reiki energy. Then, a series of talismans floating in front of him began to change in a surprising way. These talismans began to arrange themselves in a rather regular way. In an instant, a talisman formation appeared in front of Chu Hen, This formation was composed of more than 1,000 talismans arranged in an orderly manner. The light patterns intersected with each other, like an ancient and mysterious formation. The light was dazzling, and the beautiful runes were like the stars in the vast universe. Chu Hen's vision seemed to be opened in an instant. This seemingly ordinary formation seemed to have a special kind of magic, attracting Chu Hen's attention and merging it with it. Then, the copper plate once again emitted an obscure power fluctuation. Subsequently, the arrangement of the talisman formation in front of him was disrupted, but soon all kinds of talismans began to reorganize, and the second talisman formation appeared in front of Chu Hen. Then, the talismans in front of Chu Hen constantly changed, like colorful spiritual butterflies, one after another talisman formation after another. It was truly unpredictable, causing Chu Hen's eyes to be dazzled. Until the last talisman formation was finished, all the talismans quickly converged into the copper plate like a flock of butterflies returning to their nest. Phew! Chu Hen deeply breathed out a breath of relief. The scene that had just appeared in front of him could be said to be an eye-opener. He had never thought that some talismans could be arranged in this way. However, since he didn't know most of the talismans, it was difficult for Chu Hen to judge the classification and effect of these talismans. Obviously, this copper plate contained the powerful talismans mastered by Senior Shifeng Zi. Treasure. It was definitely a treasure. Chu Hen's hand that was holding the copper plate tightened. If news of this thing got out, he was afraid that he would definitely be hunted down by all the talisman masters in the province. The talisman records left behind by an earthly talisman master were enough to make the vast 100 Nations province fight for them, and blood would flow like a river. However, at the same time, while Chu Hen's heart was heavy, he was more excited. This was a legacy book of an earthly talisman master. To Chu Hen, who was also a talisman master, it was a treasure that he could only dream of obtaining. However, what caused Chu Hen to be in a bit of a dilemma was that he could only recognize a few runes from before. If he wanted to arrange the talismans, the first thing he had to do was to learn those talismans. Just like writing, if he wanted to complete a smooth sentence, the first thing he had to do was to learn those words and expressions. A smooth sentence required the matching of words. The formation of a talisman technique also required the correct arrangement of every talisman. Of course, this was just a metaphor. Talismans were talismans after all, and there was still a huge difference between the two. If Chu Hen wanted to understand the meaning of those talismans, what kind of power did they contain? As for what kind of power it contained, there were two ways. The first method required someone to teach him. The second method was to try it out one by one, condense the talismans one by one, and test what their attributes were. The first method obviously wouldn't work. After all, Chu Hen was just a 9th-grade advanced talisman master. If he suddenly took out so many complicated and powerful talismans to ask others, it was hard to guarantee that it wouldn't arouse suspicion. In that case, there was only the second method left. Condense the talismans one by one, and test the power attribute within them. This was definitely the simplest and stupidest method, and it would be difficult to complete without patience. Fortunately, Chu Hen had always been a patient person. There was no doubt about this. After sorting out his thoughts, Chu Hen once again injected Reiki energy into the copper plate. Buzz, a series of talismans that were as dazzling as light butterflies swarmed out of the copper plate once again. Looking at the dazzling talismans in front of him, Chu Hen straightened his posture, and his burning gaze fell on the first talisman. Immediately, the surging Reiki energy was mobilized. A strange talisman began to condense and appear between Chu Hen's fingers. It was stable, with a hook and a horizontal stroke, bold and powerful, and quite imposing, after about half a cup of tea's time. The first talisman appeared in the air, but in Chu Hen's eyes, it could be said to be perfect. Chu Hen used his heart to sense that the waves emitted by the talisman were more restless, and he could vaguely see traces of silver lightning patterns flashing on it. It was obvious that this was a talisman related to the power of lightning. I see. Chu Hen carefully sensed the attribute of the talisman, and kept it in mind. Then, he dispersed the first talisman, and began to condense the second one. Time passed, and one mysterious talisman after another appeared between Chu Hen's fingers. Because Chu Hen had an extremely stable foundation, this kind of thing that seemed difficult to others was relatively easy to him. Chapter 490. Early in the morning, as the night faded, the holy rays of the morning sun shone on the earth. Under the cover of the morning sun, the heavenly sword pavilion glowed brightly. The majestic peaks pierced through the clouds like sharp swords, showing the power to connect the heavens. The sky was not completely bright yet, but the various training grounds of the heavenly sword pavilion were already filled with countless young disciples who had woken up early to train. Sword energy lingered like a heavenly rainbow, like a flowing light. A deep roar sounded like a tiger's roar, like a landslide. There was only a month left until the Sword Law Grand Meet. All the geniuses were making ample preparations for the upcoming day. When the soft rosy clouds shone into Chu Hen's room from the window, a rune flickering with a soft light shattered on Chu Hen's fingertip and turned into ice shards that filled the sky. Phew, letting out a long sigh, Chu Hen rubbed his slightly swollen temples. His eyes were filled with exhaustion. The shiny copper plate was placed at the side, emitting a soft luster. After a whole night, Chu Hen had condensed a total of 10 runes and recorded their attribute. It was obvious that Chu Hen was not satisfied with this result. At the beginning, Chu Hen's momentum was like a rainbow, and he had condensed 4 to 5 runes in a row. However, the further he went, the more difficult it became. Not only did he spend a lot of time, but the Reiki energy was also consumed at an extremely fast rate. Of course, Chu Hen also knew the reason. His attainment in the art of runes was only at the level of a 9th grade high rune master, and the rune books that Shifeng Zi had left behind were all extremely high-level runes. For Chu Hen to be able to condense 10 runes in a night, it was already a very impressive result in the eyes of an ordinary person. "I'm still a little too ambitious," Chu Hen muttered to himself. He had made a very common mistake. He was too anxious, and the gains did not make up for the losses. It was clear that there were still many rune techniques that he had learned from the Lei Huan clan's chief that he had yet to master. If he wanted to directly skip this level and leap to the level of an earth pattern master, this was simply unrealistic. A wry smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. After a short period of silence, Chu Hen temporarily put away the copper plate. His tired eyes once again shone with determination. "I'll break through to the spiritual tattooist level first and master the rune skills of Lei Huan." Then, Chu Hen packed up and prepared to leave. The Thousand Cranes Sect. Myriad Sky Peak. Screech, a resounding and impassioned cry of a ferocious bird resounded through the heavens and the earth, and it swept through the mountains and rivers in all directions. The clouds danced in the blue sky, and strong winds began to blow. Powerful, piercingly cold waves of qi spread out in all directions. All the disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect raised their heads and looked over. They saw a fiery red shadow charge through the sky from afar, and it swept through the sky with the might of a whirlwind. "What's the situation?" "I don't know. Could it be the people from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion?" The first to enter their field of vision was a majestic and imposing fiery red bird. The bird's entire body was covered in crimson flames, and when it spread its enormous wings, they were over 100 meters wide. Moreover, powerful waves of qi swept towards the surroundings. The most shocking part was that the bird actually had 2 heads. It was domineering and evil. "It's a twin-headed flamingo, a grade 5 beast king." A faint voice arose from the crowd below. In the blink of an eye, the twin-headed flamingo had arrived in the sky above the square in front of Myriad Sky Peak. After that, a thin black-clothed figure flashed down from the bird's back and descended firmly at the center of the square. He was around the age of 30, and he had a sharp gaze. Even though his aura was restrained, he still emanated a sharp aura like a sword. "Who has come to visit my Thousand Crane sect?" Right at this moment, a few figures with thick auras walked out successively from the main hall of Myriad Sky Peak. "I'm Luo Xing from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. I've come to pay a visit to the sect master of the Thousand Crane sect on the orders of the Pavilion Master." Ha 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 ha. So it's the distinguished guests of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. We've been waiting for a long time. Along with a wave of hearty laughter, a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing strode out from the main hall. The middle-aged man had a dignified bearing, brows that extended to his temples, a pair of bright eyes that were dazzling like stars, and every single move he made emanated the imposing aura of a sect master who wielded authority. "Greetings, Lord Sect Master." The disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect bowed respectfully. On the other hand, the black-clothed man called Luo Xing took a few steps forward, cupped his fists, and bowed respectfully. "I'm Luo Xing. Greetings, Sect Master Qi Zhang." Qi Zhang, the name of the Thousand Crane sect's sect master. Qi Zhang grinned, raised his hand and said, "There's no need to be so courteous." "Thank you, Sect Master." Luo Xing nodded, and then he withdrew an invitation with a golden border and passed it to Qi Zhang with both hands. "This is the invitation to the Sword Scripture Grand Meeting. We'll be waiting for all of you at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion a month from now." After that, an elder of the Thousand Crane sect took the invitation from Luo Xing and passed it to Qi Zhang. The latter spread open the invitation, glanced at it, and then pressed his palms together. "I've received the invitation. Please pass it on to Pavilion Master Mu. The Thousand Crane sect will definitely be present." "Thank you, Sect Master Qi Zhang. I have another matter." "Speak." "The Sword Scripture Grand Meeting is around the corner. I hope Sect Master Qi Zhang can send the list of participating disciples to our sect within 20 days. "Oh!" Qi Zhang was slightly surprised. On the other side, the Grand Elder, Duan Qinshan, asked, "Why is there a need for a list this year?" "Grand Elder Duan, our sect's Sword Scripture Grand Meeting this year will be carried out in an elimination format. Due to the fact that there were many geniuses participating in the past, the preliminaries will be carried out in different areas. Thus, we need to use the list of the various sects and powers to compile the results." Luo Xing answered. "I see." Qi Zhang nodded. In previous years, the competition was indeed more chaotic due to the large number of people. As a result, the competition took too long. Pavilion Master Mu is very considerate. We will send the name list to you before the designated time. "Thank you, Sect Leader. Since the invitation has been delivered, I will take my leave first. It wasn't easy for you to come here. Why don't you rest here for 2 days and let us show our hospitality? I'm overwhelmed by Sect Master's hospitality. However, I still have a few invitations in my hands that I have yet to send out, so I appreciate Sect Master's good intentions." Luo Xing said very politely. Qi Zhang nodded. "Since you still have a mission, I won't stay any longer. Farewell. Take care." Then, Luo Xing stepped into the air and landed on the back of the twin-headed flamingo. Then he cupped his fists and said loudly, "The Heavenly Sword Pavilion welcomes everyone." Screech. After that, the twin-headed flamingo let out a heaven-shaking cry and caused a wave of surging waves of heat before it vanished into the horizon under Luo Xing's control. As soon as Luo Xing left, the entire Thousand Crane sect was filled with clamorous noise. The Sword Scripture Grand Meet is finally about to begin. I've been waiting for this day. What are you waiting for? With your strength, it's just a formality. Exactly, it all depends on us core disciples. Our senior brother Wu Yuan is definitely a strong candidate to become the champion. He'll probably encounter the Azura sect's Shui young master, Shui He. The battle is coming in the end. The Sword Scripture Grand Meet. It was a grand event that the entire province looked forward to. It was a battle between the top geniuses of the various sects and powers, and it was a battle to make a name for themselves. Moreover, it was a rule to test the overall strength of the various sects and clans. The sect leader of the Thousand Crane sect, Qi Zhang, gazed into the distance while his dazzling eyes revealed slight indescribable meaning. The vast sky seemed to be calm, but it was actually covered in a sea of clouds. Why do I keep having the feeling that something major is about to occur during the Grand Meet this year? Chapter 491. Around the same day that the Thousand Crane sect received the invitation from the Celestial Sword Pavilion, the Illusory Rain sect, Azura sect, Otherworldly Spirit sect, Moon's End City, Grand Firmament City, and many other reputable sects in the prefectures also received invitations. The impending arrival of the Sword Codex Grand Meet had already set off a frenzy in the entire province. It was a battle between top-notch monstrous geniuses, a battle where geniuses would rise to fame. Tens of thousands of eyes were on it, and it was highly anticipated. This was the largest and most valuable battle between geniuses in the province. In the following month, the most talented geniuses from various sects would head to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion one after another. As for the higher-ups of the sects, they would also arrive before the final battle. The 100 Kingdoms prefecture was like a gathering storm, and heroes were rising. As time passed, the date of the Sword Codex Grand Meet drew closer. A large number of geniuses and experts had already arrived at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion one after another. A sect like the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was a place where many people yearned to learn martial art. Geniuses from various sects would arrive at the Sword Pavilion a few days in advance. Firstly, they could use this opportunity to admire the various cultivation grounds of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion and experience or study some exquisite swordsmanship. Secondly, they could interact with the geniuses from other sects before the Grand Meet began, so that they could have a better understanding of the situation. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion was especially generous with the arrival of the geniuses. The various cultivation grounds were open to the public, and they were well received in all aspects. As the Sword Codex Grand Meet approached, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion became more and more lively. The number of geniuses from various sects that had gathered there was constantly increasing. All kinds of young men and women made the already prosperous sect even more lively. In the back mountain area dozens of miles away from the startling Sword Peak, the lush mountain forest was filled with abundant spiritual energy. This was the place where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was the densest in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the environment was beautiful and picturesque. In the distance, there were mountain ridges and jagged rock. All kinds of strange flowers and grasses grew everywhere, and nimble little beasts traversed the forest. Boom! Suddenly, a piercingly cold gust of wind swept across the area. Flowers and grasses bent, leaves fluttered in the air, and the surrounding little beasts scurried away in fright. In an instant, the chaotic momentum became more and more astonishing, and the spiritual chi in this world became especially restless. In the sky above the ninth heaven, the spiritual chi from all directions quickly gathered and blended together, forming a spiritual chi nebula vortex that was 100 meters wide, floating above an empty mountain forest. However, on the empty ground, a spiritual formation with a diameter of over 30 meters was in operation. The beautiful formation patterns interweaved like silver light, dazzling and radiating brilliance. At each of the hubs of the formation, there was a translucent upper-grade primal crystal stone. More than 1,000 high-grade crystals were neatly suppressed at the pivot of the formation and continuously supplied a huge amount of energy. At this very moment, a young figure was sitting in the center of the spiritual formation. His handsome face looked as if it had been carved by a knife, with distinct edges and corners. His eyes were lightly closed, and between his brows, there was a young and heroic aura. Fluctuations of true yuan that fluctuated between strong and weak were released from his dantian. Other than that, there was a white light flashing from time to time between his brows. The Reiki energy that originated from his Naiwan palace was also extremely restless, like the undercurrent of the deep sea. Rumble, at this moment, the beautiful formation patterns all over the ground blossomed with a dazzling brilliance. The 100-meter-wide spiritual energy vortex that enveloped the sky stirred the heavens in all directions, then quickly returned to the center, turning into a small vortex of light that descended from the sky, rushing towards the young man in the center of the spiritual formation. Buzz, in an instant, the young man seemed to be bathed in the golden holy light formed by the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Endless spiritual chi flowed into his body like a whale sucking in water. At the same time, the upper-grade crystals that were pressed at the various hubs of the spiritual formation were also rapidly supplying the energy output, maintaining the smooth operation of the spiritual formation. The spiritual chi within a radius of 12 miles was drawn in by the spiritual formation, layer by layer, majestically gathered in all directions, and was channeled into the young man's body. This scene was like a heaven-devouring demonic beast devouring the essence of heaven and earth. The light patterns that lingered around the young man's body were especially resplendent, and even his skin seemed to faintly flicker with a faint golden light, as if he had been soaked in the holy light. The restless aura became increasingly stronger, and the body of the young man was like a volcano that was brewing magma, ready to erupt at any time. This scene continued until evening. Previously, the spiritual energy that had gathered here was as dense as a golden fog. But now it had become extremely thin. The 1,000 high-grade crystal stones that were holding the formation had also become exceptionally dim and had lost their original luster. There were even many crystal stones that had already started to crack, buzz. At this moment, the power that originated from the young man's body began to rapidly rise. Intense true core energy and Reiki energy lingered around his body, like a rapidly rotating cyclone light beam, and a piercingly cold wind swept the fallen leaves, swirling up sand and stones. Immediately after, when the energy in his body rose to its peak, with a boom sound the space trembled, and a vigorous Reiki energy rose and rose like a stormy sea, turning the already unstable Naiwan Palace upside down. In the middle of the Naiwan Palace, the street tree was growing at an extremely fast speed, and the light patterns on the tree intersected, looking as bright as a ray of light. The lush branches and leaves swayed, like the crisp and melodious sound of wind chimes. Other than the street tree, the volume of the space in the Naiwan Palace was also rapidly expanding, and the hazy chaotic time continued to give birth to new spaces. In the blink of an eye, the street tree that was originally about 200 meters tall had grown to a height of 300 meters. Its branches and leaves were luxuriant, like a towering tree. The intensity of the Reiki energy that was nurtured was many times stronger than before. Boom! In the next moment, a violent surge of true core energy was set off in Chu Hen's sea of qi in his dantian. The violent power was like a flood that broke through a dam, gushing out from his yuan dan. Kacha! A light cracking sound rang out from within Chu Hen's body. Within his qi sea, the fourth crack appeared on the dazzling golden yuan dan. The horrible momentum spread in all directions, crushing all the way down. Bang, 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 all the high-grade primordial crystal stones in the surroundings exploded in an instant, turning into crystal fragments that danced in the air. The airflow between heaven and earth became particularly chaotic. Immediately, Chu Hen opened his eyes, and two bright lights burst out from his pupils. A circle of invisible and vigorous air waves spread out, and the trees and flowers within 100 meters were directly shaken into two pieces. Subsequently, the amazing and powerful momentum quickly converged. Phew! Chu Hen gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, with a gleam of surprise in his bright eyes. He had finally become a first-grade spiritual tattooist, and he had successfully broken through to the fourth stage of the void-piercing realm. This twin chaos spirit formation is really extraordinary. Chu Hen's face revealed a shocked expression. Chu Hen was not surprised to be able to complete 2 breakthroughs on the same day. The formation he had just activated was called Twin Chaos Spirit Formation. This was one of the top spirit formations among the many rune techniques left by the patriarch of the Thunder Illusion clan. This Chaos Spirit Formation could instantly extract the spiritual power of heaven and earth within a radius of 10 miles, and in the shortest time, generate true core energy and Reiki energy for the use of the people in the formation. Of course, in order to arrange this formation, Chu Hen spent more than 20 days. Collecting spiritual grass and spiritual liquid, condensing and arranging formation patterns, distributing upper-grade primordial crystals, looking for a suitable place to arrange, and so on. All kinds of tedious matters made Chu Hen really understand that it was not so easy to be a tattooist. However, the result was still very satisfactory to Chu Hen. The effect of the Twin Chaos Spirit Formation made the more than 20 days of busy work worthwhile. I wonder how Mengchang has grasped the power of the clone seal? Chu Hen had already informed Luo Mengchang. Luo Mengchang was very obedient and did not follow Chu Hen, afraid that she would disturb him. Just as Chu Hen was about to leave, his heart suddenly lit up as if he had thought of something. Buzz! A white light flashed, and a black stone appeared in his palm. The color of this stone was dark, angular, and extremely irregular. It did not look like a complete stone. Instead, it looked like a fragment of something. This was what Chu Hen had obtained when he participated in the Thousand Crane Sect's new disciple assessment. It was the second round of the assessment, and the mission was to kill a lava boulder beast. The lava boulder beast was only a grade 1 beast king, but the strength it displayed at that time surpassed that of a grade 3 beast king. After killing the lava boulder beast, Chu Hen took out this strange stone from the lava boulder beast's stomach. At that time, Chu Hen had used the power of his demon eyes to probe the secrets within the stone. However, the demon eyes were only at the grade 3 beast king level at that time. Let's try it now. The power of the demonic eye. Buzz! Along with a faint scorching feeling, Chu Hen's pupils flickered with a bewitching purple light. Soon after, the internal structure of the stone began to clearly appear in Chu Hen's line of sight. There were strange patterns of light flowing within the stone, and these patterns were three-dimensional, looking like a peculiar beehive. Within the patterns of light, there was a hazy ball of light that emitted mysterious and obscure energy fluctuations. What was that? Chu Hen strengthened the power of his demon eyes again. Buzz! The probing power of a 4-star demon eyes was much stronger than that of a 3-star demon eyes. After a short pause, Chu Hen's vision suddenly broke through the hazy light barrier. Then, the thing inside the stone was revealed to him. This is? Chu Hen's pupils constricted, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Chapter 492. What's this? Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly, showing a little astonishment on his face. There was a strange rune hidden in the center of the stone. The rune was not very complicated, but it gave people a feeling that it could not be seen through. The rune was black for a while, white for a while, and then a mixture of black and white. Its shape was somewhat similar to the 2 fish of yin and yang in the irregular Tai Chi pattern. What on earth was this rune? Chu Hen thought for a while, and immediately separated a wisp of real inner force into the stone, wanting to further explore the rune. What was it? However, just like the first inspection, the real inner force seemed to meet an iron plate and could not enter at all. The real inner force did not work. Try the Reiki energy. Then, Chu Hen withdrew the real inner force and released the Reiki energy to explore, but the result was still the same. Even the Reiki energy could not penetrate it. It doesn't make sense. Chu Hen sighed and shook his head. After thinking for a while, he could not help but come to a conclusion. Is it because my cultivation is not strong enough to open it? The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. The 3-star demon pupils could not explore the situation inside, but now the 4-star demon pupils could. It probably showed that this matter was related to his strength. He could only try it when his cultivation was higher. Soon after, Chu Hen casually threw the stone into his storage ring. Then, with a thought, the mighty and vigorous Reiki energy spread out from the Mudpill Palace, climbed to his fingertips like light vines, and immediately turned into a complicated rune. Looking at the rune on his fingertips, Chu Hen showed a knowing smile on his face. This was the 11th rune that he had failed to condense before. He did not expect that it would be so easy to release now. It was totally handy. The gap between a senior tattoo artist and a spiritual tattooist was self-evident. Let's go. Chu Hen removed the rune on his fingertips and withdrew the power of the demon pupils. He got up and moved his muscles and bones, making them crackle. He was full of energy and seemed to have endless strength. It felt so good to be powerful, Chu Hen murmured. Then, Chu Hen prepared to return to the Sword Peak. Less than 300 meters away from his previous location, Chu Hen couldn't help but be startled. There were actually quite a few demon beast corpses lying in the forest ahead. At a glance, there were about 7 or 8 of them, and many of them were poisonous species that were more dangerous. This is? Chu Hen was startled at first, and then his eyes lit up. He saw a white silk handkerchief hanging on one of the big trees. With some confusion, Chu Hen casually took the handkerchief off, and 2 lines of small, delicate characters came into view. Someone only cared about cultivating and didn't set up a defensive formation nearby. I'm very hurt. How could you make such a low-level mistake? Just this once, don't do it again. A smiley face was drawn behind the simple sentence. Chu Hen's eyebrows relaxed and he couldn't help but reveal a knowing smile. There was a surge of warmth in his heart. Previously, when Chu Hen had chosen this area, he had actually scouted around. There were no demon beasts lurking nearby. However, Chu Hen neglected one point. When the twin primordial chaos formation was activated, it would gather all the heaven and earth spirit chi within a radius of more than 10 miles, which would cause a very large energy fluctuation. Once the spiritual energy became dense and large, it would easily attract demon beasts. This was something that Chu Hen didn't expect, and it could be considered a mistake. However, what Chu Hen didn't expect was that Luo Mengchang would actually come here to see him once a day, but every time she came, she would only watch from afar in the dark. Once she was sure that there was nothing wrong with Chu Hen, she would leave. She came every day for more than 20 days. He didn't disturb her, but quietly paid attention and carefully protected her. Chu Hen gently folded the handkerchief and put it in his arms. Immediately, he moved and stepped into the air, heading in the direction of the Sword Peak. At this moment, Chu Hen was eager to see Luo Mengchang. That yearning was magnified infinitely in an instant, filling his heart. However, it was also at this moment that a rapid and sharp wind-breaking force suddenly appeared in the forest in front of them. Along with it was a strong bloody and murderous aura. "Who's there?" Chu Hen's expression changed slightly as he shouted in a deep voice. Boom, boom. Before he finished speaking, a piercingly cold red beam of light suddenly split a tree that was so big that several people could wrap their arms around it. Then, it traversed through the air and swept up a powerful and terrifying might towards Chu Hen. The red light immediately arrived in front of Chu Hen, only to see that it was actually a long red whip. Fine gray light patterns lingered around the long whip, tearing through the air and resounding in all directions. In a hurry, the primordial core in Chu Hen's body rotated rapidly, and the vigorous true inner force spread out like a mighty spring, facing the attack head-on. Bang! An extremely heavy and violent explosion sounded, and the strong true inner force released by Chu Hen was directly blown up by the fierce long whip. A chaotic ball of true inner force exploded in the air. The incomparably powerful red light dragged a series of afterimages, hitting firmly on Chu Hen's chest. Boom! A beautiful ring of light rippled out like a water ripple. The powerful force of impact caused Chu Hen to fall back from the sky. A thin layer of frost spread on Chu Hen's face. He lowered his head slightly, and the clothes on his chest were still intact, with almost no trace of damage, but his chest was burning with pain, and his chi and blood surged, injuring his internal organs. What a strange attack. Who are you, hiding in the dark and acting sneakily? After being whipped for no reason, Chu Hen was very angry, and his good mood from before was reduced by more than half. But it was still the red light that answered Chu Hen. Swoosh, the red light pierced through the dark forest, and this time, it actually attacked Chu Hen's throat in a straight line. The attack was as fast as lightning, and it was incomparably fierce. As it moved, there was a spiral of air at the front of the red light, spinning at high speed. In the next second, the spiral of air suddenly transformed into the head of a sinister blood python, and it opened its mouth to bite at Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he knew that this strange long whip was strange. He used the light oscillating movement technique, and he dodged to the side. The sharp light brushed past Chu Hen's shoulder, and heavily bombarded a tree that was dozens of meters tall behind him. Bang! With a loud explosion, the tree was directly smashed into smithereens. The killing power contained within it was actually so terrifying. Chu Hen's eyebrows furrowed even more. The opponent's attack was vicious, and it was obvious that he had not held back at all. This person's intention was very simple, and he was specifically targeting Chu Hen to heavily injure him, or even kill him. Two balls of anger rose in Chu Hen's eyes, and his deep and cold gaze penetrated the dark forest where the red light had come from. His figure moved, and he rushed forward. The opponent's reaction speed was also not slow. The moment Chu Hen moved, the red light swept through the air with a sweeping momentum, launching an attack. According to common sense, in a forest battle, using a long whip as a weapon was very disadvantageous. The trees and vegetation would limit the range of the whip's attack, but the situation in front of him was not like that. Every tree that came into contact with the red light was directly cut in half. No matter how big the tree was, it did not cause the slightest bit of resistance. It was as light as a sharp knife cutting through tofu. Swoosh! Swoosh! The red light danced in the sky like a dancing dragon, and it split apart one tree after another, attacking Chu Hen like a shadow. However, Chu Hen did not get entangled with it, and he relied on his agility to quickly close the distance between him and the opponent. Soon, a blurry figure appeared in his field of vision. Chapter 493. Boom, bang! The sky darkened, and the crescent moon rose into the sky. In the forest a few dozen kilometers away from the back mountains of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, an intense battle was currently taking place. A strange red beam of light shot through the forest like a dancing dragon at Chu Hen. This strange whip was extremely agile. It was as if it were alive. Its speed was extremely fast, and its attacks were extremely powerful. Furthermore, it seemed to be able to extend its length indefinitely. As soon as it came into contact with the vegetation in the forest, it was like a sharp knife slicing through a piece of paper. There was almost no resistance at all. A powerful wave of energy surged, wave after wave. Chu Hen relied on the agility of the light-shaking technique to quickly close the distance between him and his opponent. Where is he? Chu Hen's gaze trembled. He saw a blurry figure appear in the dark forest a few dozen meters in front of him. Humph! Chu Hen harumph! Surging true origin energy quickly gathered on his left arm, and a dazzling silver light burst forth from his palm. Following this, he punched out with his fist. A fierce gust of wind began to blow, and a silver fist light burst forth from his body, carrying with it an incomparably ferocious aura towards the figure in front of him. It seemed like a casual attack, but it actually contained a tremendous amount of force. The figure let out a low cry of surprise. It was somewhat surprised that Chu Hen's reaction speed was so fast. However, just at this moment, a surging red brilliance exploded from within the figure's body. The surging True Yuan shockwave was like a flood as it poured down and directly collided with Chu Hen's fist aura. Boom! The collision of particularly violent forces caused a thunderous sound to ring out. The red light and the silver light wantonly collided, and the residual power of the chaotic light patterns spread out, causing the surrounding trees to break and explode. Whoosh! Chu Hen chased after the figure as quickly as he could, arriving in the area where the figure was located. However, the figure that had been there a second ago had already disappeared. Whoosh! The swift and fierce red long whip followed closely, attacking Chu Hen from the right side. Chu Hen raised his palm and pushed back the beam of light. At the same time, he left behind an afterimage in his original place, and his body suddenly disappeared on the spot. However, no matter how fast Chu Hen was, the red light could always catch up to him. It had to be said that Chu Hen found it difficult to adapt to this kind of fighting style. He was in the light while the enemy was in the dark. As time went on, they would still be at a disadvantage. The other party's continuous vicious killing moves gradually made Chu Hen very angry. Even though he was sullen, Chu Hen's mind was not the slightest bit chaotic. The more difficult the opponent was, the more important it was to maintain a calm mind. Boom! The incomparably powerful light beam was like an indestructible dragon bone. The terrifying destructive power caused area after area to be blasted into ruins. After the short exchange earlier, the other party also knew that Chu Hen had extraordinary speed. Therefore, when that person launched his attack, he kept changing his position. This caused Chu Hen to be unable to grasp his exact location at the first moment. "He's really cunning," Chu Hen cursed in his heart. Whoosh! Chu Hen's figure moved, drawing a bright silver streamer in the air. With an extremely fast speed, he went behind a big tree that was so wide that 5 or 6 people could encircle it. Then, a surging Reiki energy spread out from Chu Hen's Naiwan palace. Nearly 100 beautiful runes condensed on Chu Hen's fingertips like spiritual butterflies. Whoosh! The long whip, like a blood-red python, tore the air and attacked the big tree. At this moment, Chu Hen, who was surrounded by bright golden light, took the lead and rushed in another direction. In an instant, the red light beam suddenly changed its moving trajectory, changing its position in the air flexibly, and began to pursue Chu Hen. Buzz! A strong wave of power burst out from the long whip, and the red light beam bloomed with a rich brilliance. As the speed of the pursuit suddenly increased, the front part of the long whip strangely diverged, like a ferocious monster opening its bloody mouth, exuding a strong destructive aura. Chu Hen, who was in front, was caught up in an instant. Whoosh! The diverged red light beam stabbed at Chu Hen's throat and back, one in front and one behind. Bang! With a muffled sound, Chu Hen's body was penetrated by the 2 red light beams on the spot. Humph! A disdainful sneer came from the depths of the dark forest. But at this moment something unexpected happened. Chu Hen, whose body had been penetrated, exploded into rune fragments that filled the sky. It was the image rune technique. "Oh no, I've been tricked!" In the dark of the forest, there was a sound of alarm that indicated that something was wrong. Before he could change his position, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the other side of the forest, and a terrifying force swept over. The grass and trees were flattened and rocks were sent flying. A purple arrow that was 20 to 30 meters wide flew through the lush forest like a shuttle from outer space. Wherever the purple arrow went, the trees and vegetation were crushed into powder, and the powerful airwave caused a deep ravine that was more than 10 meters wide to appear on the ground. Humph! Along with a cold snort, a red light surged out like a flood and collided head-on with the purple arrow with an astonishing aura. Boom! The violent and ferocious forces collided, and immediately set off a monstrous shock wave of chi. The 2 different colors of light were like a tsunami, covering the sky and sweeping in all directions. The extremely destructive force flattened a large area of the lush forest. Under the bombardment of the chaotic energy that was like a storm, a figure in red quickly flew back, and steadily landed behind a big tree. However, before the other party could stabilize his mind, there was a bang sound, and the towering tree in front of him was directly split in 2, and a cold aura hit him in the face. What? The man's heart skipped a beat. Just as he was about to launch a counterattack, a sharp vibrating sound pierced his eardrums. Under the splashing sawdust, a sharp spear that was swallowing blood pierced the air, and instantly pressed against the other party's throat. "Don't move!" A cold voice came out of Chu Hen's mouth, and the biting cold aura formed an invisible pressure. There was a lot of surprise in the man's eyes. He did not expect Chu Hen's reaction to be so fast, and it was so unexpected. It was a young woman dressed in a gorgeous red dress, and her long hair was tied up high. Her appearance was not top-notch, but it was very enchanting. Her clothes were also quite open, and her chest was relatively low, faintly showing her impressive breasts. To most men, this woman was definitely very charming. But even so, Chu Hen still held the demon Punisher spear in his hand very firmly. He stared coldly at the other party and asked, "Who are you? What do you think?" A frivolous smile appeared on the woman's face, and there was no trace of fear on her face. But at this moment, a cold and gloomy airflow surged in front of Chu Hen. Swish! Immediately after, the gorgeous woman retreated to the side like a ghost, and broke away from Chu Hen's control. "Ailon, you've lost a little too badly," an indifferent voice was heard. In the air, there was a burst of invisible pressure. Chu Hen's brows furrowed. Along with the sound of steady footsteps approaching from far away, two figures, one in front and one behind, slowly walked out from the darkness of the forest. Murderous aura. An especially thick and bloody murderous aura. A solemn look appeared in Chu Hen's eyes, and he stared seriously at the young figure walking in front of him. It was a young man with skin as white as a woman's. He looked rather weak and fragile. However, Chu Hen could clearly sense a dense stench of blood from the other party's body. This was definitely an aura that could only be obtained after experiencing countless cruel slaughters. This aura caused one to tremble with fear. Chu Hen had already vaguely guessed who this person was. The person behind him was wrapped in a black robe. He looked at Chu Hen, and a sinister laughter sounded from under the black robe. "Hee Ailon, I've said it before. Don't be too careless when dealing with this brat." As soon as he finished speaking, the black-robed man slowly took off the black hat on his head, and a gloomy, half-burnt face appeared in front of Chu Hen. "Tuyi. Xiao Luo sect Tuyi." With this, Chu Hen was 100% sure of the identity of the person in front of him. The number one genius of the Xiao Luo sect, the Blood Prince, Shui He. The young woman named Ailon sneered and glanced at Tuyi with disdain. "It's better if you cover your face, it's disgusting." Tuyi's eyes turned cold, and his gaze towards Chu Hen was filled with a thick murderous intent. The burns on his face were caused by Chu Hen. Although he had managed to escape with the power of Chu Hen's 4-star demon eyes back in the Mang Mountain forest, his skin had been badly burnt by the solitary burning demon flames. If it had been an ordinary flame, the medical elder of the Xiao Luo sect would have been able to heal Tuyi. However, the flames of Chu Hen's demonic eyes were extremely domineering. The Xiao Luo sect elder had used all sorts of methods, but he was still unable to get rid of the burns on his face. "What's the matter?" Chu Hen asked lazily. I admire your calmness," Tuyi said fiercely. Chu Hen smiled and spread out his hands. "Losers don't need to say anything." Immediately, Chu Hen's gaze directly looked towards the young man in front of him, who had a playful smile on his face. "I wonder why the renowned young master Shui has brought people to intercept me so late at night?" It's nothing." Shui smiled slightly. It must be said that the Blood Prince's smile was very good-looking, cultured and refined. However, no matter how one looked at the other party's smile, there was an aura that made one's heart palpitate. Chapter 494. Blood Prince Shui. He was the number one genius of the Shura sect and a monstrous existence who stood at the top of the pyramid in the entire 100 Nations prefecture. Under that seemingly frail appearance, there were actually countless experts who had lost their lives to him. In the vast region, there were countless people who would tremble in fear upon hearing the name Blood Young Master. Chu Hen did not expect Blood Prince to suddenly look for him at such a time when the Sword Law Grand Meet was just around the corner. I just want to see what the purple flame that Tu Yi spoke of looks like. Shui had a lazy and frivolous smile on his face as he looked at Chu Hen in front of him with interest. This was the reason. Chu Hen raised his eyelids and revealed a faint, cold smile. It turned out that the red-clothed girl called Ai Lan had continuously attacked him in order to force him to use the power of the solitary burning evil flame. However, she did not expect that with Chu Hen's strength, he would be able to take her down without the help of the power of the bloodline boundary. I'm sorry, but I'll most likely have to disappoint you, Chu Hen replied without fear on his face. He raised his eyebrows slightly and continued smiling. Then, what if I insist on watching? Then I guess the three of you will have to attack at the same time. Hua! A biting cold current suddenly spread out. No one would have thought that Chu Hen would actually dare to say such shameless words. Who was the person he was currently facing? Blood Prince Shui. Absolute arrogance. A grain of rice dares to compete with the sun and moon? A mere nobody dares to speak such nonsense. The corner of Shui's mouth curled up into a sneer. You're courting death. Tu Ye's eyes turned cold as he took the lead and unleashed a surging aura toward Chu Hen. A rich bloody glow rose around his body like boiling water, and its aura was astonishing. Chu Hen sneered and thrust the demon Punisher's spear in his hand forward. A cold and domineering spear light surged out and directly bombarded the front of Tu Yi. Bang! The convergence of true essence caused a loud explosion. A blood-red light blossomed, and the momentum of the spear was astonishing. The vigorous True Yuan in front of Tu Yi was shattered by the sharp spear tip. What? Tu Ye's expression changed greatly. He was shocked to discover that Chu Hen's power had become even greater than when he was in the jungle of Mount Mang. This fellow broke through again. However, it was already too late for Tu Yi to understand. Bang! The unstoppable glint of the spear solidly smashed into the center of Chu Hen's chest. A violent force that was comparable to a mountain came crashing down, causing ripples to appear in the air. Tu Yi was sent flying by Chu Hen's spear. On the other side, Ai Lan was greatly surprised. Swish! She raised her right arm, and a red beam of light shot out from her sleeve. With an ear-piercing sound, it wrapped around Chu Hen's right arm that was holding the demon Punisher's spear. Get back here! Ai Lan shouted coldly. Hee. Chu Hen laughed naughtily and teasingly said, I wonder where you want me to go? Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, Chu Hen suddenly gave up on pursuing Tu Yi. His feet moved, and he leaped into the air, heading straight for Ai Lan. Ai Lan's expression changed again. She had been trying to stop Chu Hen from launching a second round of attacks on Tu Yi. However, she had not expected him to give up on Tu Yi in the blink of an eye and charge towards her instead. He was so fast that Ai Lan did not even have time to withdraw her red whip to defend herself. In a hurry, Ai Lan's figure flashed, and she retreated backwards like a nimble swallow. As she retreated, she raised her hand and struck at Chu Hen. Too slow. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled into a demonic smile. Just as Ai Lan was less than half a meter above the ground, Chu Hen had already stretched out his left hand. Wisps of black light crawled up his entire arm like vines, and the overbearing True Yuan restlessly flickered and pulsed. A powerful and oppressive force surged towards her. Ai Lan's pupils violently shrank, and she subconsciously shouted, Senior Brother Shui, save, ugh. Before she could finish speaking, Ai Lan felt a suffocating sensation spread throughout her body. A powerful hand had firmly gripped her snow-white neck. In the next instant, an astonishing force pushed Ai Lan backwards. Chu Hen still had his hand around her throat, and firmly slammed her against a giant tree. Bang! True Yuan splattered in all directions, and wood splinters flew everywhere. The giant tree behind Ai Lan burst open in succession, and the terrifying impact caused her entire body to go numb. Her chi and blood surged, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. However, Chu Hen's hand was still gripping her like a pair of iron pincers. Humph, you can't even withstand a single blow. Can't even withstand a single blow. The oppressive force radiating from Chu Hen's body made Ai Lan feel as if she had fallen into the depths of an abyss. Her pale face was already filled with panic. However, it was also at this moment that an ice-cold, sharp aura suddenly came from behind Chu Hen. "Hey, you're too slow. Blood Prince." Chu Hen's heart was slightly alarmed. When did the other party arrive? Immediately after, Shui He's right hand firmly pressed down on Chu Hen's shoulder, and soon after, he raised his left hand high up. The space faintly trembled, and a dozen blood-red cyclones rapidly gathered towards the center of his palm. In an instant, a sharp blood-red spiked short spear appeared in Shui He's left hand. A cold and excited smile appeared on Shui He's face. Swoosh, a single hand fell, and the spiked short spear tore through the air, stirring up a dense aura of death as it pierced towards Chu Hen's head. Imminent peril, like a flash of lightning. Tu Yi, who was not far away, and Ai Lan, who was in front of Chu Hen, felt their hearts in their throats. Suddenly, Chu Hen suddenly turned his head, and a pair of deep, ice-cold pupils had unknowingly turned into a demonic purple. His sharp gaze reflected the sharp spikes that were rapidly approaching. Boom! A formless, majestic aura was released from Chu Hen's pupils. The 4 black dots in the depths of his eyes trembled violently, and a demonic purple light gushed out from them. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the spiked short spear in Shui He's hand shattered into countless ice shards when it was less than 5 centimeters away from Chu Hen's left eye. The shards danced like dust and drifted in the air. Ai Lan and Tu Yi both revealed a horrified expression. Chu Hen had neutralized Shui He's attack just like that? Hee, not bad. Shui He's eyes revealed an excited, bloodthirsty light. To him, the stronger the opponent, the more excited he was. An even more surging murderous aura filled the air, and the airflow between heaven and earth suddenly became colder and colder. "All of you, stop." Suddenly, a deafening, heavy voice exploded above their heads. A dozen or so figures with vigorous auras appeared. All of them were dressed in shining armor, and a sword hung on their waist. Every one of them was emitting a biting cold sword aura. "Humph, don't blame us for being impolite to those who dare to behave atrociously in our heavenly sword pavilion." The leader was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was tall and sturdy, and he carried a heavy sword on his back. As he led everyone to descend, a formless sword aura spread out, and a circle of spiral-shaped sword runes instantly appeared on the ground. These people were the patrolling guards of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The commotion of the battle just now had attracted them here. My apologies. The Sword Law Grand Meet is just around the corner, and we are here to spar and prepare for the competition. I'm really sorry for accidentally disturbing everyone. Shui He smiled frivolously, and then removed his right hand from Chu Hen's shoulder. "Blood Young Master?" When the patrolling guards saw the person in front of them clearly, their expressions all changed. The other party was actually the Shura sect's strongest genius, Blood Young Master Shui He. Then, when they saw Tu Yi, who was in a sorry state, and Ai Lan, whose throat was being choked by Chu Hen, they were even more stunned. What was going on? Was Chu Hen fighting against 3 core disciples of the Shura sect by himself? Soon after, Chu Hen casually released Ai Lan. The latter's delicate figure trembled slightly, and her numb body nearly caused her to fall to the ground. A few ugly marks had already appeared on her originally fair neck. "Young Master Chu Hen, what happened?" The middle-aged man in the lead opened his mouth and asked. Chu Hen was someone that Mu Feng had brought over. Although the Heavenly Sword Pavilion did not like him, he was still the young master. Since he was brought back by the young master, he was an important guest. As for the Blood Young Master Shui He, although he was famous, He was still a member of the Shura sect. Comparatively speaking, they should be more inclined towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen indifferently glanced at Shui He, and then slightly nodded his head. It's nothing. It's just as Blood young master said. We were just sparring here, and did not expect to disturb you. Sparring? This exchange of pointers was really intense. The middle-aged man had a tacit understanding. He knew that Chu Hen did not want to make things difficult for them. Although this was the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Shui He's identity was extraordinary. Even if he caused some trouble, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion would not be able to do anything to him. However, the middle-aged man had truly started to look at Chu Hen in a different light in his heart. Under such circumstances, he was actually able to injure Tu Yi and restrain Ai Lan. Such strength was truly surprising. However, Blood young master Shui, he was not a kind person. As far as everyone was concerned, it was fortunate that they had arrived in time. Otherwise, Chu Hen would probably have been in deep trouble. Ahem, since there's nothing else, all of you should go back and rest. The Sword Scripture Grand Meet will begin in a few days, so all of you should stop running around. Haha, you're right. Shui He lightly smiled indifferently. He slightly raised his right hand and looked at Chu Hen with a teasing smile. Don't run around, it's quite dangerous around here. The meaning behind his words was extremely clear. Chu Hen smiled frivolously as well, and bluntly retorted. That's right. If all of you want to go out, it's best if you travel together. If it's just one or two people, it'll be easy for your throats to be crushed. Ai Lan and Tu Ye's faces turned cold, and their eyes shone with a cold light. However, Shui He did not have the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. He smiled as he looked at Chu Hen. His gaze was as if he was looking at a person that was about to die. I'm becoming more and more interested in you. I just don't know if you'll be able to survive until the day of the final battle. Chapter 495. Under the mediation of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's patrol team, the first battle between Chu Hen and Shui He had ended before it had even begun. Shui He had only made one move, but it had displayed an extremely impressive aura and strength. The name Blood Prince was indeed well-deserved. In that short contact, Chu Hen could still feel the pressure from Shui He. How strong was the other party? It was not shown. Honestly speaking, Chu Hen was not very confident that he could fight against the Blood Prince one-on-one. But at the same time, Chu Hen had never been someone who was afraid of trouble. Who cared what young master or prodigy you were? Once you crossed his bottom line, he would not hesitate to make a move. When Chu Hen returned to the frightening Sword Peak, it was already deep into the night. The huge mountain range was quiet, and a few patrolling sword servants could be seen in the distance. The frightening Sword Peak was the main peak of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the people who lived here were basically the higher-ups of the pavilion. As for the many geniuses and experts of the various sects, they were all assigned to live on other peaks. If not for Mu Feng's personal arrangements, Chu Hen and Luo Mengchang would not have been able to live on the frightening Sword Peak. In the dead of the night, the bright moon hung high in the sky. The sky was filled with stars that decorated the vast starry sky. Chu Hen flew down and landed on the square of the frightening Sword Peak. There were many magnificent buildings in the vast square, and the most eye-catching one was the Sword Ancestor statue in front of the 100 Zhang Pavilion on the north side of the square. The founder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, the first pavilion master. Even though it had been thousands of years, this statue still gave off a solemn and sacred aura that could not be violated. Chu Hen walked in front of the Sword Ancestor statue and involuntarily stopped in his tracks. He did not know why, but he seemed to unconsciously come to the side of the statue. This statue seemed to have a special magical power that attracted Chu Hen. As for where it was, what was the reason? He could not tell. This is really strange, Chu Hen muttered to himself, his eyes faintly revealing some confusion. On the first day he came to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion with Mu Feng, when Chu Hen passed by the sword ancestor statue, he vaguely felt a strange energy fluctuation. That energy seemed to have mobilized the power of the bloodline boundary in Chu Hen's body. Was it a coincidence? Or was it an illusion? Chu Hen raised his head and looked at the sculpture in front of him. In the dim moonlight, this sculpture emitted a hazy and mysterious aura. The sword ancestor's face was sharp and angular, and he looked heroic and extraordinary. But no matter how Chu Hen observed it, it seemed to be an ordinary sculpture. Other than its grandeur, there was nothing special about it. Forget that day, I was probably an ancestor. Sword. And Chu ancestor sword, ancestor spirit, then, he prepared to leave. However, in the instant that he was about to shift his gaze away, something that caused Chu Hen to feel a chill run down his spine happened. He suddenly found that the statue was staring at him. What? Chu Hen frowned, closed his eyes, and opened them again. Sure enough, the statue's eyes were indeed staring at him. The sword ancestor's eyes were clearly looking at the sky in front of him. Chu Hen remembered it very clearly. What is going on now? The eyes of the sword ancestor statue had an inexplicable attraction, which made it difficult for Chu Hen to look away. The more he looked at it, the more confused Chu Hen became. Boom! Suddenly, a strange dark red splendor suddenly burst out from the eyes of the sword ancestor sculpture. The other party's eyes seemed to have become a vast and boundless ocean, and also like the boundless sky of the star domain. An extremely strong traction firmly pulled Chu Hen's consciousness and fused it with it. The sky and earth were spinning, and the stars were moving. What appeared in front of Chu Hen was a bloody world. The sky was dark, and the sky was dyed with blood. The earth was covered with mountains and rivers, and corpses were everywhere. In the distance, the flames of war and the smoke of war could be seen everywhere. The air was filled with an endless amount of ferocious demonic energy. In front of Chu Hen stood a huge figure, more than 1,000 feet tall. This figure was exactly the same as the sword ancestor statue in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The statue is alive? Chu Hen became more and more shocked and confused in front of this huge figure. How small was Chu Hen? Endless fiendish demonic chi enveloped the world. This figure stood proudly under the blue dome of heaven, just like an ancient fiendish demon. At this moment, the figure looked at Chu Hen. Looking down at the common people. When their eyes met, Chu Hen's eyes suddenly turned a strange red. The next moment, the blood in Chu Hen's body seemed to be ignited, and a strong hatred and killing intent filled his heart. Kill! All sorts of uncontrollable hatred surged in Chu Hen's heart. The scene of him being set up by Wei Qingfan in the Sacred Star Empire, and having his cultivation crippled, and the tendons in his arms and legs severed suddenly appeared in his mind. Then, the scene of him being rejected by 30 prefectures in the capital and suffering all sorts of setbacks. Then, the scene of Long Zhan dying to save him immediately filled his mind. Hatred and killing intent continued to rise and stack. Chu Hen's eyes were blood-red, and the flames of his anger began to rise violently. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow hiding in Chu Hen's body could not help but let out a cry of surprise. It muttered to itself, "Has an inner demon appeared? That shouldn't be. Could it be?" Buzz buzz. Suddenly, a dense black light surged out of Chu Hen's body uncontrollably. The power of the chaotic body began to circulate and release on its own. Immediately after, the hatred and anger flowing in Chu Hen's blood was immediately suppressed. The continuously rising killing intent also disappeared without a trace in an instant. On the square of the frightening sword peak, the blood-red light in Chu Hen's eyes quickly faded. Then, he was startled and his consciousness flashed. He immediately felt as if he had just woken up from a dream and walked out of an illusion. What happened to me just now? Chu Hen's expression was a little blank. Did I fall into an illusion just now? He looked at the statue of the sword ancestor in front of him again, only to see that the statue's eyes were looking at the vast sky in front of him with an awe-inspiring aura. It wasn't looking at me? Everything that had just happened was no longer there. At this moment, a wide and gentle palm gently patted Chu Hen's shoulder. "Little brother, are you all right?" Chu Hen was shocked. He turned his head sideways and saw a middle-aged man in his 40s standing in front of him. The man wore a gorgeous robe and had an extraordinary bearing. His gentle eyes revealed the dignity of an expert.